You've just stepped into Dark North Stories, where true horror doesn't come from fiction, but from your neighbor's basement, the road you took last night, or the room upstairs. I'm your host, and I've combed through disturbing files, online confessions, and chilling testimonies to deliver the kind of stories you wish you never heard. These stories aren't made to entertain you. They're here to remind you some creatures are still around us, somewhere around the dark sides of the long highways of the American states. So if you're still with me, stay connected then, and lock your doors. Silence your phone. And remember, it's never a story. It's a real fear presented into words now. Stay aware. This is Dark North Stories.
The hiker who wasn't there.
Or so I thought. I got to the trailhead around 9 a.m., and the parking lot was emptier than I expected. Just 3 other cars, which was unusual for a Friday, even in October. But I figured most people were at work, and honestly, I was happy to have the trail mostly to myself. I signed in at the registry box, checked my phone one last time, full battery, good signal, and started up the trail. The first mile was completely normal. The trail wound through dense cedar and Douglas fir, and I could hear the sound of Rattlesnake Creek burbling somewhere off to my left. I passed a couple coming down, probably in their 60s, with those expensive hiking poles and matching North Face jackets. We exchanged the usual trail pleasantries, and they mentioned they hadn't seen many people up ahead. Perfect, I thought. About 1.5 miles in, where the trail starts to climb more steeply, I saw him for the first time. He was maybe 30 yards ahead of me, moving at almost exactly my pace. I could just make out his silhouette through the trees, average height, wearing what looked like a dark green or brown jacket and jeans. Not typical hiking gear, but not that unusual either. Plenty of people do these trails in regular clothes. What struck me, though, was how quietly he moved. I couldn't hear his footsteps at all, even though the trail was covered in dry leaves and twigs that crackled under my own boots. I kept walking, and so did he, always maintaining that same distance. I'm naturally a pretty fast hiker, and I figured I'd catch up to him eventually, maybe exchange a few words, then pass him. But no matter how fast I walked, he stayed exactly the same distance ahead. When I slowed down to catch my breath at a switchback, he seemed to slow down too, disappearing around a bend just as I looked up. This went on for maybe 20 minutes, and I started to feel watched. It's hard to explain, but you know that prickly sensation you get on the back of your neck when someone's staring at you? It was like that, but constant, unrelenting. I told myself I was being ridiculous. There was a guy hiking the same trail as me. So what? But then things got weird. I came around a corner where the trail opens up a bit, and I should have had a clear view at least 50 yards ahead. He was gone. Just gone. And this section had no side trails, no place to hide. The trees were thinner here, and I could see pretty far in every direction. Unless he had suddenly started sprinting, which I would have heard, there was no way he could have gotten out of sight that quickly. I stood there for a minute, listening. The forest had gone quiet. No birds, no squirrels rustling in the underbrush. Nothing. Just the sound of my own breathing and the distant white noise of the creek. I pulled out my phone to check the time, 10:47 a.m., and noticed my signal had dropped to nothing, not even 1 bar. That was odd. I usually had at least some service on this trail. I decided to keep going. What else was I going to do? Turn back because a hiker had walked faster than I thought? But I picked up my pace, and I kept glancing behind me. The forest felt different now, oppressive somehow, like the trees were leaning in closer than they should. 10 minutes later, I saw him again. This time, he was below me on a lower switchback moving in the same direction. That's when my stomach dropped, because that's not how switchbacks work. If he'd been ahead of me and I had somehow passed him without noticing, he should have been behind me, not on a lower section of trail. Unless he had somehow left the trail, cut through the dense forest, and gotten back on below me. But why would anyone do that? I stopped walking and just watched him. He moved with this odd, smooth gait, never looking up, never pausing. His head was down, like he was studying the trail, and his arms hung straight at his sides, not swinging naturally the way people's arms do when they walk. It was subtle, but wrong, like watching a mannequin try to imitate human movement. "Hey!" I called out. My voice sounded too loud in the quiet forest, almost shocking. "Hey, you okay down there?" He didn't respond, didn't even slow down, just kept walking until he rounded another bend and disappeared from view. That's when I should have turned back. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to get off this trail, to head back to my car and leave. But I was almost to the top, maybe another half-mile, and the logical part of my brain kept insisting I was overreacting. I'd come this far, I might as well finish the hike. Worst decision I ever made. I kept walking, and so did he, always maintaining that same distance. I'm naturally a pretty fast hiker, and I figured I'd catch up to him eventually, maybe exchange a few words, then pass him. But no matter how fast I walked, he stayed exactly the same distance ahead. When I slowed down to catch my breath at a switchback, he seemed to slow down too, disappearing around a bend just as I looked up. This went on for maybe 20 minutes, and I started to feel watched. It's hard to explain, but you know that prickly sensation you get on the back of your neck when someone's staring at you? It was like that, but constant, unrelenting. I told myself I was being ridiculous. There was a guy hiking the same trail as me. So what? But then things got weird. I came around a corner where the trail opens up a bit, and I should have had a clear view at least 50 yards ahead. He was gone. Just gone. And this section had no side trails, no place to hide. The trees were thinner here, and I could see pretty far in every direction. Unless he had suddenly started sprinting, which I would have heard, there was no way he could have gotten out of sight that quickly. I stood there for a minute, listening. The forest had gone quiet. No birds, no squirrels rustling in the underbrush. Nothing. Just the sound of my own breathing and the distant white noise of the creek. I pulled out my phone to check the time, 10:47 a.m., and noticed my signal had dropped to nothing, not even one bar. That was odd. I usually had at least some service on this trail. I decided to keep going. What else was I going to do? Turn back because a hiker had walked faster than I thought? But I picked up my pace, and I kept glancing behind me. The forest felt different now, oppressive somehow, like the trees were leaning in closer than they should. 10 minutes later, I saw him again. This time, he was below me on a lower switchback moving in the same direction. That's when my stomach dropped, because that's not how switchbacks work. If he'd been ahead of me and I had somehow passed him without noticing, he should have been behind me, not on a lower section of trail. Unless he had somehow left the trail, cut through the dense forest, and gotten back on below me. But why would anyone do that? I stopped walking and just watched him. He moved with this odd, smooth gait, never looking up, never pausing. His head was down, like he was studying the trail, and his arms hung straight at his sides, not swinging naturally the way people's arms do when they walk. It was subtle, but wrong, like watching a mannequin try to imitate human movement. "Hey!" I called out. My voice sounded too loud in the quiet forest, almost shocking. "Hey, you okay down there?" He didn't respond, didn't even slow down, just kept walking until he rounded another bend and disappeared from view. That's when I should have turned back. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to get off this trail, to head back to my car and leave. But I was almost to the top, maybe another half-mile, and the logical part of my brain kept insisting I was overreacting. I'd come this far, I might as well finish the hike. Worst decision I ever made. The trail leveled out as I approached the ledge, and I started to hear something over the sound of the wind in the trees. Footsteps. Behind me. Slow, deliberate, matching my pace exactly. I'd stop, they'd stop. I'd start walking, they'd start. Never getting closer, but never falling behind either. I spun around twice, quickly, trying to catch whoever it was, but the trail behind me was empty each time. Just trees and shadows and that narrow dirt path winding back down the mountain. My hands were shaking as I reached the viewpoint. The ledge offers this incredible panoramic view of Rattlesnake Lake and the surrounding mountains, and on any other day I would have stopped to take pictures, to enjoy the scenery. Not today. I barely glanced at the view before starting down the other side of the loop trail. That's when I saw the footprints. The ground on this side of the trail was muddy from recent rain, and there were prints everywhere. Boot prints, sneaker prints, dog paw prints. Normal trail traffic, but right in front of me, appearing in the mud as I watched, were fresh prints. They appeared one at a time, as if someone invisible was walking toward me, each print materializing in the mud with a soft squelching sound. I backed up, nearly tripping over my own feet, and the prints stopped appearing. They just stopped. I stood there, frozen, staring at those impossible footprints, and I heard it. Breathing. Right next to my ear, close enough that I felt the warmth of it on my neck. Slow, raspy breathing, in and out, in and out. The smell hit me next, something rotten, like spoiled meat and wet earth. I wanted to scream, to run, but my body wouldn't cooperate. I was locked in place, every muscle rigid with terror. Then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The presence, or whatever it was gone. The normal sounds of the forest came rushing back, birds calling, branches creaking in the wind, the distant sound of the creek. I could move again. I ran. I'm not proud of it, but I ran down that trail faster than I've ever moved in my life, not caring about twisting an ankle or falling on the uneven ground. I passed other hikers going up. When had they gotten on the trail? And they gave me strange looks, probably thinking I was crazy. Maybe I was. Maybe I am. When I finally got back to the parking lot, gasping for breath and drenched in sweat despite the cool air, there were more cars than when I had arrived. Normal Friday afternoon hikers, families with kids, a couple of teenagers taking selfies by their car. Everything looked so normal, so mundane, that I almost convinced myself I'd imagined the whole thing. But then I checked my phone. I'd been on the trail for 4 hours. 4 hours for what should have been a 2-hour hike max. Where had the time gone? I had no memory of those missing hours, just the terror of those footprints appearing in the mud and that breathing against my neck. I drove home in a daze and didn't tell anyone what happened. Who would believe me? I barely believed it myself. I tried to convince myself it was dehydration or a panic attack or some kind of altitude sickness, even though I'd never experienced anything like that before. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. The thing that made me finally decide to write this all down and share it. I was going through my photos last week, deleting old ones to free up storage space, and I found a picture on my phone from that day. I don't remember taking it. It's a shot of the trail, looking back the way I'd come, and it's time-stamped 11:14 a.m., right around when I first noticed the hiker had vanished. In the background, partially obscured by trees, is a figure. He's standing completely still, about 20 feet off the trail, facing toward the camera, toward me. And here's what made my blood run cold. His face is wrong. It's blurred in a way that can't be explained by camera shake or poor lighting. Not blurred like motion blur, but blurred like static, like visual noise, like something that shouldn't exist trying to force itself into a photograph. But the worst part? His arms. They're not at his sides anymore. In the photo, they're raised, reaching toward the camera, reaching toward where I must have been standing when the photo was taken. And the distance between us in the photo is much, much less than 30 yards. I've tried to delete the photo a dozen times. It won't delete. It just reappears in my gallery, sometimes in different places, sometimes with slightly different details. In some versions, he's closer. In others, I can see more figures behind him, all standing in the same pose, all with those blurred, static-filled faces. I haven't been back to that trail. I haven't been back to any trails, actually. I see hiking groups posting on social media about the beautiful fall colors, the crisp winter air, the first signs of spring on the mountain trails, and I feel nothing but dread. Last month, a friend invited me to join her for an easy, casual hike up Rattlesnake Ledge, and I made up an excuse about a work commitment. I couldn't tell her the truth. Sometimes, late at night, I'll wake up and check my phone, and that photo will be open on my screen, even though I know I didn't open it. And each time the figure is a little bit closer, his reaching arms a little more extended, those blurred features a little more defined. I'm starting to make out details now. Eyes, I think, or the hollows where eyes should be, and something that might be a mouth, open too wide, filled with darkness. I know how this sounds. I know people will say it's Photoshop or a hoax or that I'm mentally ill. Maybe I am. Maybe I had some kind of break with reality that day on the trail, and I'm still there, really. Lost in the woods, hallucinating all of this. But it feels real. The photo feels real. The memory of that breathing on my neck feels real. I'm writing this as a warning, I guess, or maybe just as a confession. If you hike in the Pacific Northwest, particularly around the Rattlesnake Ledge area, and you see someone on the trail who doesn't seem quite right, someone who moves too smoothly, whose arms hang too straight, who stays always ahead of you or always behind you but never gets closer, don't try to catch up with them. Don't call out to them. Don't take their picture. Just turn around and leave the trail. It's not worth finding out what they want, or what they are, or why they're there. Trust me on this. Because I think I'm starting to understand. I think I'm starting to see the pattern. Every few days, I notice the figure in the photo has moved again, gotten closer. At the rate he's progressing, I'd estimate he'll reach the edge of the frame in about 2 weeks. And I don't know what happens after that. I don't know what happens when he runs out of photograph to move through. But I'm terrified I'm going to find out. Last night, I heard footsteps in my apartment. Slow, deliberate footsteps in my living room at 3 a.m., even though I live alone, even though all my doors were locked. I lay in bed, frozen, listening to those footsteps pace back and forth, never coming closer to my bedroom door, but never leaving either. And underneath my door, I saw a shadow. The shadow of 2 feet, standing still, waiting. I didn't get up. I didn't look. I just pulled my blanket over my head like a child hiding from monsters and waited for morning. When I finally got the courage to check, just after dawn, there was nothing there. But on my phone, there was a new photo
I didn't take. It was a picture of my bedroom door, taken from inside my living room, time-stamped 3:47 a.m. And in the very corner of the frame, just barely visible, was the edge of that blurred figure, those reaching arms entering the photo from outside the frame. He's not in the woods anymore.
The ferry that comes at midnight. My name is Connor, and I'm 15 years old. I live in Seattle, Washington, right on the waterfront. My dad works for the Washington State Ferry System, and I've been riding ferries my whole life. I know every route, every boat, every schedule. Or at least I thought I did. What I'm about to tell you happened 2 months ago, and I still can't explain it. I still can't sleep without having nightmares about it. And I know that someday soon, I'm going to have to make a choice that will change everything. It started on a Friday night in late February. My friend Austin and I had gone to a concert in downtown Seattle, and we'd missed the last bus home. It was after 11 p.m., and we were trying to figure out how to get back to my house in West Seattle without calling our parents and getting in trouble for staying out so late. We could walk to the ferry terminal, Austin suggested. Catch a water taxi or something. I knew the water taxi didn't run that late, but I figured we could at least get closer to home from there. So we walked down to the Seattle ferry terminal on the waterfront. The place was almost empty, just a few homeless people sleeping on benches and a janitor mopping the floors. We sat outside on a bench near the dock, trying to figure out our next move when I heard it. A ferry horn, long and low, echoing across the dark water. "That's weird," I said. "No ferries run this late." The last one to Bainbridge left at 10:30. But sure enough, I could see lights approaching from across Puget Sound. A ferry, moving toward the Seattle terminal. As it got closer, I could see it was an old boat, really old. Not like the modern ferries with their white paint and big windows. This one looked like something from the 1950s or 60s, all dark metal and small portholes. "Maybe it's a private charter," Austin said. "Or like a dinner cruise or something." The ferry pulled into the dock with a loud clang of metal on metal. The gangway lowered, and I could see the car deck was completely empty. No vehicles at all. Just darkness and shadows. Then the passenger door opened, and people started coming off. Except they weren't normal people. I could tell right away something was wrong with them. They moved stiffly, awkwardly, like they'd forgotten how to walk. Their clothes were old-fashioned, like from different time periods. Some wore suits from the 1950s. Others had bell-bottoms from the 1970s. Others wore clothes I didn't recognize at all. And their faces. Oh God, their faces. They were gray. Not like they were sick, but like all the color had been drained out of them. And their eyes were empty, staring straight ahead, not looking at anything or anyone. About 20 of them got off the ferry and walked past us. They didn't make any sound, no footsteps, no breathing, nothing. They just walked up the dock toward the terminal building and disappeared into the city. Austin grabbed my arm. "Dude, what the hell was that?" Before I could answer, a voice called out from the ferry. "All aboard for the midnight crossing. Last call." I looked and saw a man standing at the passenger entrance to the ferry. He wore a ferry worker's uniform, but it was old and worn, and he looked wrong too. His skin had that same gray tone, and when he smiled at us, I could see his teeth were black. "You boys need a ride," he called. "Ferry's leaving in 2 minutes. Next one won't be till tomorrow midnight." "No thanks," I said quickly, pulling Austin to his feet. "We're good." But Austin was staring at the ferry, like he was hypnotized or something. "Where does it go?" he called to the man. The man's smile got wider. "Goes wherever you need to go. Takes you where you belong. No ticket required. Just step aboard." "Austin, let's go," I said, but he took a step toward the ferry. "I want to see," he said, his voice sounding weird and distant. "I want to know where it goes." The ferry horn blasted again, and more people started coming up the dock toward the boat. These weren't the gray people getting off. These were normal people, or at least they looked normal at first. A young woman in a business suit. An old man with a cane. A teenage girl about our age. But as they walked past us toward the ferry, I noticed something. They all looked sad. Hopeless. Like they'd given up on something. The teenage girl was crying silently, tears running down her face. The old man's hands were shaking. The businesswoman's eyes were red and puffy. They walked onto the ferry without looking at anyone, and the man in the uniform welcomed them aboard with that horrible black-toothed smile. "Austin, we need to leave right now," I said, grabbing his jacket. "But where does it go?" Austin asked again, still staring at the ferry. "Connor, I need to know. I need to get on that ferry." I pulled him harder, and finally he snapped out of it. He looked at me confused, like he'd been sleepwalking and just woke up. What was I doing?" "You were about to get on that ferry. Come on, we're leaving." We ran. We ran all the way up to Pike Place Market, several blocks away, and only stopped when we couldn't see the waterfront anymore. Austin was breathing hard, looking scared. "What was that?" he asked. "Why did I want to get on so badly? It was like something was pulling me. I don't know, but we're never going back there at night. Ever." We ended up calling Austin's older brother to pick us up, and we got in trouble for being out so late, but I didn't care. We were safe. We'd gotten away from that horrible ferry and those gray people. I tried to forget about it. I told myself it was just some weird dinner cruise or private charter, and the people were just actors or something putting on a show. But I couldn't forget the way Austin had acted, like he was being hypnotized. And I couldn't forget those gray people, or the man with the black teeth. A week later, my dad came home from work looking upset. I asked him what was wrong, and he said one of his co-workers had gone missing. A woman named Janet, who worked in the ticket booth. She'd been dealing with depression, he said, and she'd left a note saying she needed to get away, needed to go somewhere peaceful. They found her car at the ferry terminal, my dad said. Just abandoned there. But nobody saw her get on any ferry. It's like she just vanished. Something cold went through me. "Which terminal?" I asked. "The Seattle terminal. The one downtown." I didn't tell him what I'd seen. How could I? He'd think I was crazy. But over the next few weeks, I started noticing things. Missing person posters around the city. News reports about people disappearing from the waterfront. All of them had left their cars at the ferry terminal. All of them had disappeared at night. And when I looked up the dates, I realized they'd all vanished on Friday nights, right around midnight. I did some research online, trying to find any information about a midnight ferry. I found old blog posts and forum threads from people who claimed they'd seen it. Some called it the ghost ferry. Others called it the midnight crossing. All the stories were similar. An old ferry that appeared late at night, taking passengers somewhere unknown, passengers who never came back. One post from 10 years ago caught my attention. It was from someone named Jennifer, and she wrote, "My brother saw the midnight ferry 3 times. After the first time, he said he heard it calling to him. After the second time, he couldn't stop thinking about it. He said it promised him peace, promised him rest, promised him an end to all his pain. After the third time, he got on. I never saw him again. If you see the midnight ferry, don't look at it. Don't listen to it. And whatever you do, don't go back a third time." 3 times. I'd seen it once. Austin had seen it once. That meant we each had 2 more chances before. Before what? Before we'd be compelled to get on. Before we'd disappear like all those other people. I told Austin about what I'd found. He looked pale. "Connor, I've been having dreams about it. Every night. I dream I'm standing on the dock, and the ferry is there, and it's calling me. The horn sounds like my name. Like it's saying, 'Austin, Austin, come aboard.' And in the dreams, I want to go. I want to get on so badly it hurts." "You can't go back there," I said. "We both need to stay away from the waterfront at night. Especially on Fridays." We made a pact. No matter what, we wouldn't go near the ferry terminal on Friday nights. We'd stay home, stay safe. But last week, Austin broke the pact. He texted me on Friday afternoon. "I have to go. I can hear it calling me even during the day now. I'm sorry, Connor. I have to know where it goes." I tried calling him. No answer. I tried texting. Nothing. Finally, I rode my bike down to the ferry terminal as fast as I could. It was 11:45 p.m. when I got there. The terminal was empty except for Austin. He was standing at the edge of the dock, staring out at the dark water. Waiting. "Austin!" I yelled, running toward him. "Don't do this. We need to leave." He turned to look at me, and his eyes were empty, just like those gray people. "I have to go, Connor. It promised me. No more pain. No more fear. No more feeling like I'm not good enough. Just peace. Forever." I didn't know Austin was in that much pain. I knew his parents fought a lot, and I knew he struggled in school, but I didn't know it was that bad. I didn't know he was hurting that much. "Please," I said, "don't get on that ferry. Stay here. We'll figure things out. We'll get you help. Just don't go." But then I heard it. The horn. Long and low, calling across the water. And I felt it too, that pull, that desire to board the ferry and let it take me away from everything difficult, everything scary, everything painful about being alive. The ferry appeared out of the darkness, that same old boat with the dark metal and small portholes. It pulled into the dock, and the gangway lowered. The man in the uniform appeared at the passenger entrance, smiling his black-toothed smile. "Welcome back, Austin," he called. "We've been expecting you. And Connor, good to see you again. Will you be joining us tonight? This is your second time here. Just one more after this, and you'll be ready." Austin started walking toward the ferry like a zombie. I grabbed his arm, but he pulled away from me, stronger than he should have been. "Let me go, Connor. This is what I want. This is where I belong." Gray people started emerging from the ferry again, those same empty-eyed passengers in old-fashioned clothes. But this time, I recognized some of them. The woman my dad had talked about, Janet from his work. A man whose face I'd seen on a missing person poster. Others I'd seen in news reports about disappearances. They weren't dead. They were something else. Something in between. Stuck on that ferry, going back and forth forever. "Austin, look at them," I yelled. "That's what happens. You get on that ferry, and you're stuck there forever. You don't find peace. You just become one of them." Austin hesitated. He looked at the gray people, really looked at them, and I saw doubt in his eyes. The man in the uniform's smile faded. "Don't listen to him, Austin. He doesn't understand. They're at peace. No more suffering. No more struggle. Just the endless crossing, back and forth, in the quiet and the dark. Isn't that what you want?" "No," I said firmly. "Austin, you don't want to be like them. Look at their faces. They're not at peace. They're empty. They're nothing. Come on, please. Come home with me." Austin looked at me, then at the ferry, then back at me. Tears were running down his face. "I'm so tired, Connor. I'm so tired of everything being hard." "I know," I said, and I was crying too. "I know it's hard, but getting on that ferry isn't the answer. It's not peace. It's just nothing. Forever." For a long moment, Austin stood there, caught between the ferry and me. The man in the uniform started walking toward us, his smile gone, his face twisted with anger. "You've been called, Austin. You heard the horn. You answered. You have to come. Those are the rules." "What rules?" I demanded. "Who made these rules?" The man stopped. He looked at me with those dead eyes, and when he spoke, his voice wasn't human anymore. It was the sound of waves crashing, of metal groaning, of fog horns echoing across empty water. The sound is rules. The water calls to those who are ready to leave, those who are tired, those who want rest. The ferry comes for them. It's been coming for 100 years, taking passengers, giving them what they ask for. Eternal crossing, eternal quiet, eternal nothing. "But Austin's not asking for nothing," I said. "He's asking for help, and I'm going to help him. Come on, Austin. We're leaving." I grabbed Austin's hand and pulled. This time, he didn't resist. He came with me, and we ran up the dock, away from the ferry, away from the gray people, away from that horrible man with the black teeth. Behind us, the ferry horn blasted 3 times, angry and loud. The man's voice echoed across the water, distorted and terrible. "You've seen it twice now, Connor. One more time, and you'll have to board. One more Friday midnight, and you'll be ours. We'll be waiting." We didn't stop running until we were blocks away. Austin collapsed on a bench, sobbing, and I sat with him, holding him while he cried. "I almost did it," he kept saying. "I almost got on. What's wrong with me?" "Nothing's wrong with you," I told him. "You're hurting, and that thing preys on people who are hurting. But you didn't get on. You're still here. And we're going to make sure you get help. Real help. Not whatever that ferry was offering." I called my parents, and we took Austin to the hospital. He spent 3 days there, talking to counselors, getting evaluated for depression and anxiety. They put him on medication and set him up with a therapist. His parents finally started paying attention to how much he was struggling. It's been a month now, and Austin's doing better. Not perfect, but better. He's not hearing the ferry call to him anymore. He says the medication helps, and the therapy helps, and just knowing that people care about him helps most of all. But I'm not doing so well, because I've seen the ferry twice now. And the man in the uniform was right. I can hear it calling me. Not every night, but on Fridays around midnight, I hear that horn in my head. I hear that voice promising me peace, promising me rest, promising me an end to all the stress and fear and uncertainty of being 15 years old in a world that feels like it's falling apart. And the worst part is, sometimes I want to go. Sometimes I want to walk down to that dock and board that ferry, and let it take me away to that eternal crossing, that eternal nothing. But I won't. I can't. Because I saw what almost happened to Austin, and I know the ferry doesn't offer peace. It offers emptiness, and I'm not ready to be empty yet. I'm writing this as a warning. If you live in Seattle or anywhere in Puget Sound, and you find yourself near a ferry terminal late at night, especially on Friday nights around midnight, be careful. If you hear a horn that sounds like your name, if you see an old ferry that's not on any schedule, if a man with black teeth invites you aboard, don't go. Don't get on the ferry. No matter how tired you are, no matter how much pain you're in, no matter how badly you want rest. The ferry doesn't take you anywhere good. It just takes you away. Forever. And if you've already seen it once, stay away from the waterfront at night. Because if you see it twice, it starts to call you. And if you see it 3 times, I don't think you can resist anymore. I've seen it twice. I have one more chance. One more Friday midnight between me and that ferry. I'm trying to be strong. I'm trying to remember why life is worth living, even when it's hard. I'm seeing a therapist now too, and I'm talking to my parents about how I feel. I'm doing everything right. But it's Friday night right now. It's 11:30 p.m., and I can hear the horn calling my name across the water. And part of me wants to go. Part of me wants to walk down to that dock and see what happens. Part of me is so tired. I'm not going to go. I promise myself I'm not going to go. But if I do, if you hear that I went missing from the Seattle ferry terminal on a Friday night, you'll know where I went. You'll know I got on the midnight ferry. And you'll know I'm crossing the Sound forever, back and forth, gray and empty and nothing, just like all the others who couldn't resist the call. Please, if you're reading this and you're in pain, if you're struggling, if you're tired, get help. Talk to someone. Call a hotline. See a therapist. Do anything except go to that ferry. Because the ferry is still out there, crossing the Sound every Friday at midnight. And it's always looking for new passengers. Always calling. Always waiting. And I can hear it right now. Calling my name. Promising me peace.
The cabin at Lightning Creek. My name is Jake. And I'm 16 years old. What I'm about to tell you happened last summer during a camping trip with my older brother Marcus and his 2 friends, Devin and Sam. They were all 19, and they only let me come because my mom made Marcus take me. I was supposed to feel lucky, but after what happened, I wish I'd stayed home. We were going to spend 3 days at this old cabin near Lightning Creek in the North Cascades. Marcus said his friend's uncle owned it and nobody used it anymore, so we could stay there for free. The cabin was way out in the middle of nowhere, at least an hour hike from where we had to park the car. No roads went all the way there, no cell phone service, no other people around for miles. Just us, the forest, and the mountains. The hike-in was long and hot. My backpack felt like it weighed 1,000,000 pounds, and Marcus kept telling me to walk faster. By the time we got to the cabin, it was almost dark, and I was exhausted. The cabin looked old, really old, like it might fall down any second. The wood was gray and rotting in places, one of the windows was broken, and the front porch sagged in the middle like a frown. "This is it?" I asked, trying not to sound disappointed. "It's shelter, man." "Stop complaining," Marcus said, pushing open the door. It creaked so loud it made me jump. Inside wasn't much better. There were 2 rooms, a main room with an old couch, a table, and a fireplace, and a smaller back room with some bunk beds. Everything was covered in dust and cobwebs. It smelled like mold and something else, something sweet and rotten that made my stomach feel weird. "Dude, something died in here," Devin said, wrinkling his nose. "Probably just a mouse or something," Sam said, but he looked uncomfortable too. We spent the rest of the evening cleaning up enough to make the place livable, getting a fire going in the fireplace, and cooking hot dogs for dinner. Marcus brought a bottle of whiskey that he'd stolen from our dad, and him and his friends passed it around, getting loud and stupid. I pretended to drink when they offered it to me, but I mostly just faked it. I wanted to stay alert. Something about this place felt wrong, even before anything weird started happening. Around midnight, Marcus and his friends finally passed out. Devin and Sam took the couch, Marcus took one of the bottom bunks, and I climbed into a top bunk. I was tired, but I couldn't sleep. The cabin made noises, creaking and settling sounds, branches scraping against the roof, the wind whistling through the broken window. And that smell kept getting stronger, that sweet rotten smell, like fruit that had gone bad mixed with something dead. I must have finally fallen asleep, because the next thing I knew, I was waking up to the sound of scratching. Not like branches on the roof. This was different. Deliberate. Like fingernails on wood, slow and steady, coming from the wall right next to my head. Scratch, scratch, scratch. I lay there in the dark, my heart pounding, listening. The scratching continued, moving slowly along the wall, then down toward the floor. I wanted to wake up Marcus, but I was too scared to move. What if whatever was making that noise heard me? The scratching stopped. For a minute, there was just silence. Then I heard something else. Footsteps. Outside the cabin, walking around the perimeter. Slow, heavy footsteps, like someone taking their time, checking the walls, the windows, the door. They went all the way around the cabin and stopped at the front door. I held my breath. The door handle rattled. Once, twice. Then whoever was out there started knocking. Not normal knocking. These were slow, heavy thuds, like someone hitting the door with their fist as hard as they could. Boom. 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 That woke everyone up. Marcus sat up so fast he hit his head on my bunk. What the hell? Boom. 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 The knocking continued, shaking the whole cabin. Devin and Sam were on their feet now, looking at the door with wide eyes. The knocking stopped, and we all stood there in the dark, breathing hard, waiting. Who's out there? Marcus called out, trying to sound tough, but I could hear the shake in his voice. No answer. Just silence. Then, from right outside the broken window, we heard a voice. A woman's voice, high and sweet, but something was off about it. The words came too slow, with weird pauses, like someone who'd forgotten how to talk. Please, help me. I'm lost. So cold. Please, let me in. We all looked at each other. Sam moved toward the window, but Marcus grabbed his arm. Don't. Dude, someone might actually need help, Sam said. At midnight? Out here. Walking around our cabin and pounding on the door. Marcus shook his head. Something's not right. Please, the voice said again, and now it was at the door. I'm so cold. Just, for a little while. Let me warm up. Then. I'll go. Devin grabbed a flashlight and shined it at the broken window, but we couldn't see anything outside. Just darkness and trees. We should at least look, Devin said. No, I said, surprising myself. Everyone looked at me. My friend told me about stuff like this. Things in the woods that pretend to be people who need help. You're not supposed to let them in. That's just stupid stories, Sam said, but he didn't sound sure. The voice outside changed. It got angry, deeper, not like a woman anymore. Let me in. The door shook like something had hit it, hard. Then the scratching started again, but louder now, on all the walls at once, like a dozen hands clawing at the wood, trying to get in. The sound was so loud I had to cover my ears. Marcus grabbed a poker from the fireplace. Everyone stay away from the walls and windows. The scratching got even louder, more frantic, and then we heard it on the roof too, scrambling sounds, like something was climbing all over the cabin. Something hit the broken window hard, and we all screamed. But nothing came through. Whatever was out there couldn't get in, not yet. Then, just as suddenly as it started, everything stopped. The scratching, the climbing sounds, all of it. Complete silence. We stood there for what felt like forever, hardly breathing, waiting for something else to happen. Is it gone? Sam whispered. Before anyone could answer, we heard singing. A woman's voice again, but different from before. This voice was beautiful, sad, like someone singing a lullaby. It came from the back room, from the bunks, and I realized with horror that it was coming from the bottom bunk, from under Marcus's bed. "Something's under there," I whispered, pointing. Marcus bent down slowly with the flashlight, his hand shaking. He aimed the light under the bunk, and his face went white. He stumbled backward so fast he fell down. "What? What is it?" Devon asked. There's a woman under there. Just lying there. Staring at me. Smiling." We all looked at the bunk. From where I was standing, I could see under it a little bit. There was definitely something there, something pale, something that shouldn't fit in a space that small. And it was moving, sliding out from under the bed like a snake, too slow, too smooth. "Get out!" Marcus yelled. "Everyone out, now!" We ran for the door, and Marcus yanked it open. But we stopped dead in our tracks. Outside, standing in a circle around the cabin, were more of them. Maybe 10 or 12 figures, all pale and wrong-looking in the moonlight. They stood perfectly still, watching us, all smiling the same empty smile. Behind us, we heard the singing getting closer, and a dragging sound, like the thing from under the bed was pulling itself across the floor toward us. We were trapped. "The window," I said. "The broken one in the back room." We ran back through the cabin. The thing that had been under Marcus's bed was in the main room now, and we got our first real look at it. It looked like a woman, sort of, but stretched out wrong, with arms and legs too long and thin. Its face was pretty, but the smile was too wide, showing too many teeth. Its eyes were completely black, no white at all, just black holes that seemed to swallow the flashlight beam. "Come, play," it said, reaching for us with fingers that bent the wrong way. We dove into the back room and Sam started kicking at the broken window, making the hole bigger. The thing crawled after us, moving too fast now, its joints bending in ways that made my stomach turn. Devon grabbed a bunk bed post and swung it at the thing, and it hissed, a sound like steam escaping, and backed up a little. "Go, go, go!" Sam yelled, and we started climbing through the window. I went first because I was smallest. I scraped my arm on the broken glass, but I didn't care. I hit the ground outside and ran, not looking back. I heard the others following, heard Marcus yelling at them to run faster, heard that hissing sound getting closer. We ran through the forest in the dark, branches hitting our faces, roots trying to trip us. Behind us, we could hear them following. Not just one now. All of them. They moved through the trees like shadows, always at the edge of our flashlight beams, keeping pace with us no matter how fast we ran. I don't know how long we ran. It felt like hours. My lungs burned and my legs felt like rubber, but the fear kept me moving. Finally, we saw lights ahead. The parking lot. The car. Safety. We burst out of the trees and Marcus fumbled with his keys, his hands shaking so bad he dropped them twice. The things came out of the forest behind us, moving faster now, not bothering to hide anymore. In the light from the parking lot, they looked even worse. Some looked like people, but wrong. Others barely looked human at all, just pale shapes with too many limbs, too many joints, faces that shifted and changed when you looked at them. Marcus got the car door open and we all piled in. He started the engine and slammed on the gas, spinning gravel as we tore out of there. I looked back and saw them standing at the edge of the parking lot, watching us go. They didn't chase the car. They just stood there, waving slowly, like they were saying goodbye to friends. We drove straight home, not stopping, not talking. What could we say? When we got back to town and the sun was coming up, Marcus finally spoke. "We're not telling anyone about this. They'll think we're crazy." "What were those things?" Sam asked, his voice hoarse. None of us had an answer. We never went back for our stuff. We never told our parents the real reason we came home early. Marcus said we just got bored and decided to leave. I think our mom knew something happened because of how quiet and scared we all looked, but she didn't push it. That was 3 months ago. I thought maybe I could forget about it, pretend it was just a bad dream. But weird things keep happening. 2 weeks after the trip, Devin called Marcus. He said he'd been having nightmares every night, always the same one. He's back at the cabin, and the pale woman from under the bed is there, and she's singing to him. But the worst part, he said, was that he was starting to hear the singing when he was awake too. Just faintly, usually at night, coming from his closet or from under his bed. Last week, Sam stopped answering his phone. Marcus went to his apartment to check on him, and Sam's roommate said he'd moved out suddenly, didn't say where he was going, just packed a bag and left. But before he left, the roommate said, Sam had been acting strange. He'd covered all his windows with blankets and pushed his bed into the middle of the room, away from the walls. He said something was scratching at his walls at night, trying to get in. Marcus isn't doing well either. He's lost weight and he barely sleeps. He told me last night, when our parents were asleep, that he keeps seeing them. The things from the cabin. Not at night. In the daytime. Standing across the street from our house, or in crowds at the mall, or looking in through windows at school. Always just watching, always smiling. They followed us home, Jake, he said, and he looked like he might cry. They're not done with us. I didn't want to tell him, but I've been seeing them too. Not as much as Marcus, but enough. Last week I saw one standing in our backyard at dusk. Yesterday, I saw one in the reflection of a store window, standing right behind me, but when I turned around, nothing was there. And the singing. I hear it sometimes now too, late at night. That sad, beautiful lullaby, coming from somewhere in my room. I've checked everywhere, under my bed, in my closet, behind my furniture. There's nothing there. But I still hear it. The worst part happened 2 nights ago. I woke up at 3 a.m. to use the bathroom, and when I walked past Marcus's room, his door was open a crack. I looked in, and there was someone sitting on the edge of his bed. The pale woman from the cabin. She was stroking his hair while he slept, singing softly, and she looked up at me and smiled. I ran back to my room and locked the door. I didn't come out until morning. At breakfast, I asked Marcus if he'd had any weird dreams. He said yes, he dreamed the woman from the cabin was in his room, petting his hair, telling him she missed him and wanted him to come back to the cabin. But here's the thing that made my blood freeze. He said it didn't feel like a dream. It felt real. And when he woke up, there were long scratches on his arm, like someone had dragged their fingernails down his skin. I looked at his arm. The scratches were there. 3 long lines, red and raw. I'm writing this because I need someone to know what happened, in case something happens to us. In case we disappear, or worse. I've been researching online, trying to find stories about that area, about Lightning Creek, about the cabin. I found some things that made me feel sick. 15 years ago, a family went missing in that area. Parents and 2 kids. They found their car in the same parking lot where we parked, but they never found the family. The search went on for weeks, but it was like they'd vanished into thin air. 10 years before that, a group of college students went camping near Lightning Creek. 3 of them came back. 2 didn't. The 3 who survived said their friends had wandered off in the night and never came back. But the weird thing was, all 3 survivors died within a year, one in a car accident, one from falling downstairs, and one just disappeared from his apartment. His roommate said he'd been talking about hearing singing at night, about seeing pale figures outside his windows. There are other stories too, going back decades. People who went into those woods and came out wrong, or didn't come out at all. People who said they saw things that shouldn't exist, things that followed them home. I think the cabin is like a trap. Or maybe a door to something. And once you go there, once you see them, you can't ever really leave. Part of you stays there, and part of them comes back with you. Marcus is talking about going back. He says maybe if we go back, if we apologize or make peace with them somehow, they'll leave us alone. But I know that's crazy. I know if we go back to that cabin, we won't come out again. But the singing is getting louder. Every night, it's a little louder, a little closer. And last night, for the first time, I heard scratching on my bedroom wall. Just once, just for a few seconds. But it was there. I looked it up online, and someone in a forum said that these things, whatever they are, they mark you when you see them. And once you're marked, they slowly pull you back. First in dreams, then in waking life, until finally, one night, you'll find yourself walking out your door, walking into the darkness, walking back to wherever you saw them first. And you won't be able to stop yourself. Your body will just walk, and your mind will be screaming, but you won't be able to stop, and you'll walk all the way back to them, back to their world, and you'll never come home. I'm scared that's what's happening to us. I'm scared that one night soon, I'll wake up and I'll be walking, and I won't be able to stop, and I'll walk all the way back to that cabin at Lightning Creek, where they're waiting for me with their empty smiles and their 2 long fingers and their beautiful, horrible singing. If you're reading this, please don't go to Lightning Creek. Don't look for that cabin. Don't listen if you hear singing in the woods. And if you see pale figures watching you from the trees, don't make eye contact. Don't acknowledge them. Just leave. Run. Get as far away as you can. Because once they see you, once they mark you, you're theirs. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. But eventually, they'll come for you. They'll follow you home, they'll sing to you in the dark, they'll scratch at your walls and stand at the foot of your bed. And one night, you'll hear them calling your name, and you won't be able to help yourself. You'll go to them. We all will. Marcus just knocked on my door. It's 2 a.m. He says we need to go. He says they're calling us, and we have to answer. He says it's time to go home. And the worst part is, I want to go. Part of me wants to walk out that door right now, get in the car, and drive back to Lightning Creek. Back to the cabin. Back to them. I'm trying to fight it. I'm trying so hard. But the singing is so loud now, so beautiful, and they're promising me that if I just come back, if I just return to where I belong, everything will be okay. I won't be scared anymore. I won't hurt anymore. I'll just belong, finally, forever. If someone finds this, and we're gone, don't come looking for us. We're already home. And they're waiting for you too. The thing in the fog, I'm going to tell you something that happened to me 3 years ago, and I still get scared thinking about it. I live in a small town called Forks on the Olympic Peninsula in Washington. If you don't know where that is, it's basically the rainiest, foggiest place in America. We get fog so thick sometimes you can't see your own hand in front of your face. I was 12 years old when this happened, and I'd just gotten my first real job helping old Mr. Patterson deliver newspapers early in the morning. I know that sounds super old-fashioned, like something from a movie, but our town is small and old-fashioned, and some people still like getting actual newspapers thrown on their porch. The job started at 5 a.m., which meant I had to wake up at 4:30 while it was still dark outside. My mom wasn't happy about it, but we needed the money, and Mr. Patterson promised he'd drive me around in his truck. I wouldn't have to ride my bike or anything. Just sit in the warm truck, roll down the window, and throw papers at houses. Easy money, or so I thought. Everything was fine for the first 2 weeks. Mr. Patterson was this nice old guy who told funny stories about when he was young, and he always bought me hot chocolate from the gas station before we started our route. The houses we delivered to were spread out, mostly on this long road called Bogachiel Way that runs through the forest outside of town. Big trees on both sides, houses set way back from the road, the kind of place where you can't see your neighbors and everything is quiet and peaceful. Then, on a Friday morning in November, Mr. Patterson called my mom at 4 a.m. to say he was sick with the flu and couldn't do the route. But the papers still needed to be delivered, and he said if I wanted to use my bike, he'd pay me double. The route was only about 5 miles, and I knew it pretty well by then. My mom wasn't sure, but I begged her, and finally she said okay, but I had to take my phone and keep it on the whole time, and I had to call her the second I finished. I should have been more scared than I was. I should have said no. But I was 12 and stupid and thought I was basically grown up. I got dressed, loaded up my backpack with newspapers, and headed out on my bike at 4:45 a.m. It was still completely dark, but I had a good headlight on my bike, and I'd ridden this road before in the daylight. How different could it be? The first 3 houses went fine. I rode up their long driveways, threw the papers on the porches, and rode back to the road. No problem. But as I was heading to the 4th house, I noticed the fog was getting thicker. Way thicker than normal, and that's saying something for Forks. It was like riding through a cloud. My bike light barely cut through it, and the trees on both sides of the road looked like tall shadows, like giants standing there watching me. That's when I heard it for the first time. A voice, coming from somewhere in the fog behind me. A kid's voice, maybe my age, calling out. Hey! Hey, wait up! I stopped my bike and turned around, shining my light back the way I'd come. I couldn't see anyone. Just fog and darkness and the empty road. Hello? I called back. My voice sounded weird in the fog, muffled and flat, like the sound couldn't travel right. Wait for me, the voice called again. Don't leave me out here. It sounded closer now, but I still couldn't see anyone. My heart started beating faster. Who would be out here at 5 a.m. in the middle of nowhere? Another kid? That didn't make sense. Where are you? I yelled. I can't see you. I'm lost, the voice said, and now it was definitely closer. Maybe 30 feet behind me, but still invisible in the fog. I can't find my way home. Please help me. Something about the voice was off. I couldn't figure out what it was at first, but then I realized, it didn't sound scared. If I was lost in the dark, in the fog, in the middle of the forest, I would sound terrified. But this voice was calm, almost flat, like someone reading words off a page without any feeling. I'm going to call someone to help you, I said, pulling out my phone. Stay where you are. No, the voice said, and this time it was sharp, angry. Don't call anyone. Just wait for me. I'm almost there. I looked at my phone. No signal. Not even one bar. That was weird because I usually had at least a little bit of service on this road. The fog swirled in my bike light, and for just a second, I thought I saw something. A shape, like a person, but wrong somehow. Too tall, or too thin, or something. It was there and then it wasn't, and I couldn't be sure I'd really seen it at all. Come on, the voice said, closer now. Much closer. Maybe 10 feet away. Let's be friends. Don't you want a friend? That's when I did something I'm not proud of. I turned my bike around and I pedaled as hard as I could. I left whoever, or whatever, that was behind in the fog, and I rode toward the next house like my life depended on it. Maybe it did. The voice called after me, but it wasn't sad or angry anymore. It was laughing. A high, weird laugh that didn't sound like any kid I'd ever heard. It echoed in the fog, coming from all around me, and I pedaled faster, my legs burning, my breath coming out in scared little gasps. I made it to the 4th house and threw the paper at the porch without even slowing down. I wasn't stopping, wasn't getting off my bike, wasn't taking any chances. 2 more houses and I'd be done with this part of the route. Then I could head back toward town, where there were streetlights and other people in safety. But the fog got thicker. So thick that I could barely see 5 feet in front of me. I had to slow down because I was afraid of riding off the road into the trees. My bike light was almost useless now, just making the fog glow white in front of me. That's when I heard the footsteps. Running footsteps, keeping pace with my bike, but off to the side in the trees. I couldn't see anyone, but I could hear them clearly, the snap of twigs, the crunch of leaves, the sound of someone running fast through the forest parallel to the road. "Where are you going?" the voice called out from the trees. I thought we were going to be friends. I didn't answer. I just kept pedaling, trying to go faster, but the fog was so thick and the road was so dark and I was so scared that I could barely think straight. The footsteps got closer, moving from the forest onto the road behind me. I could hear them clearly now, slapping against the pavement, getting closer and closer. I wanted to look back, but I was too afraid of what I might see. "Stop," the voice commanded, and it didn't sound like a kid anymore. It was deeper, older, wrong. "Stop right now." Something grabbed at my backpack. I felt it, fingers, or something like fingers, catching the fabric. I screamed and pedaled harder, and whatever it was lost its grip. My backpack swung wildly, newspapers falling out onto the road behind me, but I didn't care. I wasn't stopping. I came around a bend and saw lights up ahead. The fifth house. Mrs. Chen's place. She always left her porch light on, and I'd never been so happy to see a light in my entire life. I aimed my bike for her driveway and rode up it as fast as I could, dropping my bike on her lawn and running up to her front door. I pounded on the door, looking back at the road. The fog was still there, thick and white, but I couldn't see anything in it. No shape, no person, nothing. But I could feel it. I could feel something standing there at the end of the driveway, watching me, waiting. Mrs. Chen opened the door in her bathrobe, looking confused and worried. "Sweetie. What's wrong? What are you doing here so early?" I tried to explain, but the words came out all jumbled and scared. Something in the fog, a voice, someone chasing me, I couldn't make sense even to myself. She pulled me inside and locked the door, then called my mom while I sat on her couch, shaking. When my mom got there 20 minutes later, it was starting to get light out, and the fog was lifting a little. Mrs. Chen had given me hot tea and wrapped me in a blanket, but I was still shaking. My mom hugged me tight and asked me what happened, and I tried to explain again, but it sounded so stupid in the light, with adults around. A voice in the fog? Something chasing me? I sounded like a little kid scared of the dark. But then we went to get my bike and my backpack, and that's when we saw the newspapers. They were scattered all down the road, torn to pieces. Not just torn, but shredded, like an animal had ripped them apart. And in the mud next to the road, there were footprints. They started out normal, like regular shoe prints. But as they got closer to Mrs. Chen's driveway, they changed. They got longer, thinner, and the toes spread out weird, almost like fingers. And there were too many of them, like whatever made them had more than 2 feet, or was moving in a way that people don't move. The print stopped right at the end of Mrs. Chen's driveway, right where I'd felt something watching me. And in the mud there, written in big letters like someone had used their finger to write it, were 2 words. Next time my mom called the police, and they came out and took pictures and wrote a report, but they didn't know what to make of it. Officer Bradley said it was probably just someone playing a mean prank, trying to scare me. But I saw his face when he looked at those footprints. He looked scared too. I quit the paper route that day. Mr. Patterson said he understood and didn't blame me one bit. He told me something that made my skin crawl. He said 3 years ago, another kid had the route, a boy named Tommy Reeves. Tommy quit after 2 weeks and wouldn't say why, just said he didn't like being out in the morning. Mr. Patterson always thought Tommy was just lazy. I looked up Tommy Reeves online. He moved away from Forks 2 years ago, and I found his social media. I sent him a message asking if something had happened to him on the paper route, something in the fog. He wrote back the same day. "You heard it too?" he asked. The voice asking to be friends. We talked for over an hour. He'd had almost the same experience I did, the voice, the footsteps, something chasing him. He'd made it to a house and called his dad to pick him up. But he told me something else that made me feel sick to my stomach. The weird thing is, he wrote, after I quit, I'd still hear it sometimes. At night, outside my window. Always in the fog. Just my name, real quiet. Tommy. Tommy, are you there? I thought we were going to be friends. I'd look outside and never see anything, but I'd hear it. That's why we moved. My parents thought I was having nightmares, but I was awake. It was real. I didn't tell him what happened next. I didn't want to scare him more than he already was. But I'll tell you. About a week after my mom and I saw those footprints, I was lying in bed at night when the fog rolled in. We get fog a lot in Forks, so usually I don't even notice it. But that night, I noticed. I watched it through my window, getting thicker and thicker, until I couldn't see the trees in our backyard anymore. Then I heard a tap on my window. Soft, like someone knocking with one finger. Tap, tap, tap. I didn't want to look. I pulled my blanket up over my head and tried to pretend I hadn't heard it. But then I heard the voice, muffled through the glass. I know you're in there. Why won't you be my friend? My bedroom is on the second floor. There's no way someone could reach my window without a ladder. Tap, tap, tap. Come to the window. Let me see you. We had so much fun that morning. Don't you want to play again? I wanted to scream for my mom and dad, but I was too scared to make any sound at all. I just lay there, frozen, barely breathing, while that thing tapped on my window and called to me in its fake kid voice. This went on for what felt like hours but was probably only a few minutes. Then, finally, the tapping stopped. The voice said one more thing, so quiet I almost didn't hear it. I'll wait for you. I'm very patient. And next time you're out in the fog, next time you're alone, I'll be there. We're going to be such good friends. Then silence. After a long time, I finally got brave enough to peek out from under my blanket. I looked at the window. There was nothing there. Just fog pressing against the glass. But on the window, written in the condensation from the inside somehow, even though I was inside and the window was closed, were those same two words. Next time the letters dripped down the glass like they were melting. That was 3 years ago. I'm 15 now, and I still live in Forks. The thing hasn't come back to my window, and I haven't heard the voice again. But I'm careful now. I don't go out in the fog anymore, ever. When the fog rolls in, I stay inside with all the doors and windows locked. My mom thinks I grew out of whatever was scaring me. My dad thinks it was just an overactive imagination. They don't know that I still see the footprints sometimes. Not real ones, but in my mind. Those long, thin prints with too many toes, all leading toward wherever I'm going. And sometimes, on really foggy nights, I'll look out my window and see something standing at the edge of our yard, right where the trees start. Just a shape in the fog, too tall and too thin, standing perfectly still. Watching our house. Watching my window. Waiting. Tommy Reeves messaged me last month. He said he moved to California to get away from the fog, but it found him anyway. One night, the fog rolled into his new town, rare for California, he said, and he heard the voice outside his apartment. I've been looking for you, Tommy. Did you think you could hide from me? He moved again. He won't tell me where, and he won't talk to me anymore. His last message just said, don't trust the fog. Don't trust anything in the fog. And whatever you do, don't ever, ever say yes when it asks to be your friend. I'm telling you this story as a warning. If you live in the Pacific Northwest, or anywhere with a lot of fog, and you hear a voice calling to you from the mist, a voice asking to be your friend, don't answer. Don't look for it. Don't try to help it. Just run. And if you see footprints in the mud that don't look quite right, footprints that change as they go, footprints with too many toes, go the other way. Go home. Lock your doors. Because there's something living in the fog here, something that's been here for a long time, something that wants friends. And once it decides it wants to be friends with you, once it picks you out and calls your name, I don't think there's any way to make it stop wanting you. I still have nightmares about that morning on Bogachiel Way. I still wake up scared, sure I can hear tapping on my window. But the worst part is, deep down, I know it's not over. I know it's still out there, waiting in the fog, patient and hungry and wrong. And I know that someday, probably when I least expect it, probably when I've finally started to feel safe again, I'll be out somewhere and the fog will roll in. And I'll hear it again. There you are. I've been waiting for you. Now we can finally be friends. I don't know what happens after that. I don't know what it really wants, or what being its friend means. But I think I'm going to find out, eventually. We all are.
The lighthouse keeper's daughter. My name is Emma, and I'm 14 years old. I live in a small town on the Oregon coast called Yachits. It's a pretty place, with rocky beaches and tide pools and lots of tourists in the summer. But there's one place the tourists don't go, one place even the locals avoid. The old Hasetta Head Lighthouse, or more specifically, the abandoned keeper's house next to it. Everyone in town knows the stories. They say a lighthouse keeper lived there in the 1890s with his wife and daughter. One stormy night, the daughter fell from the cliffs and died. The keeper went crazy with grief and locked himself in the house, and eventually he died there too. People say you can still see lights in the windows sometimes, even though there's no electricity. They say you can hear a little girl crying when the fog rolls in. I never believed any of it. Ghost stories are just stories, right? Things parents tell kids to keep them away from dangerous places. That's what I thought, until last month. It started because of my stupid ex-boyfriend, Tyler. We'd been dating for 3 months, and then he dumped me for Ashley Henderson, this popular girl in 9th grade. I was sad, then I was angry, and then my best friend Zoe had an idea. Let's sneak into the old keeper's house, she said. Take some pictures, post them online. Show Tyler you're brave and cool and he's an idiot for dumping you. It was a dumb plan. I knew it was dumb even then. But I was hurt and angry and 14 years old, which is a bad combination. So I said yes. We planned it for a Friday night when my parents thought I was sleeping over at Zoe's house, and Zoe's parents thought she was sleeping at mine. We'd used that trick before, and it always worked. We dressed in dark clothes, took flashlights and Zoe's phone for pictures, and rode our bikes to the lighthouse around midnight. The wind was strong that night, coming off the ocean, bringing thick fog with it. The lighthouse beam swept across the sky every few seconds, but the keeper's house sat dark and empty beside it. The house was 3 stories tall, made of white wood that had turned gray with age. Most of the windows were broken, and the front door hung crooked on its hinges. This is a bad idea, I said, looking up at the house. It seemed to lean toward us, like it was listening. Don't chicken out now, Zoe said, but I could tell she was nervous too. Her voice was shaky. We pushed open the front door, and it made this long, low creaking sound that made us both jump. Inside, our flashlight showed a hallway with peeling wallpaper and a staircase leading up. Everything was covered in dust and bird droppings. It smelled like mold and salt water and something else, something sweet and rotten, like dead fish. Let's just take a few pictures and get out of here, I said. We took pictures of the hallway, the old furniture, the fireplace and what used to be the living room. Normal abandoned house stuff. Then Zoe wanted to go upstairs. The best pictures will be from up there, she said. Maybe we can see out over the ocean. I didn't want to, but I followed her up the creaky stairs. The second floor had several rooms, all empty except for trash and broken furniture. But at the end of the hall was one door that was closed. All the other doors were open or missing, but this one was shut tight. Should we look? Zoe asked. No, I said immediately. Let's just go. But Zoe was already reaching for the door handle. She turned it, and the door swung open. The room inside was different from the others. It wasn't empty. There was a small bed with a rotted mattress, a dresser with a broken mirror, and toys. Old toys, a porcelain doll with a cracked face, a wooden rocking horse, alphabet blocks scattered on the floor. This must have been the daughter's room, Zoe whispered. The one who died. The air in the room felt wrong. Colder than the rest of the house, and heavier, like it was pressing down on us. I wanted to leave so badly my hands were shaking. Take a picture and let's go, I said. Zoe raised her phone and snapped a photo. The flash went off, lighting up the room for just a second. And in that second, I saw something that made my heart stop. In the corner of the room, standing in the shadows, was a little girl. She wore an old-fashioned white dress, and her hair was long and dark and wet, like she'd just come out of the ocean. Her face was pale, so pale it almost glowed, and her eyes were completely black. The flash ended, and the room was dark again except for our flashlights. The corner was empty. No little girl. Nothing. Did you see that? I asked, my voice coming out as a squeak. See what? Zoe asked, but she was backing toward the door. There was a girl. In the corner. Right there. I pointed with a shaking hand. Stop trying to scare me, Zoe said, but she was pale. Let's just go. We ran out of the room and down the stairs, our flashlights bouncing everywhere. Behind us, I heard something. Footsteps. Small, light footsteps, like a child running. Following us. We burst out the front door and ran to our bikes. I was fumbling with my bike lock when Zoe grabbed my arm. Emma. Look. She was pointing up at the house, at the third-floor window. There was a light up there. A soft, yellowish light, like a candle. And in the window, pressed against the glass, was the little girl. She was staring down at us, not moving, just watching. Then she raised one hand and waved. Slowly. Up and down. Up and down. We left our bikes. We just ran all the way back to town, almost 2 miles, not stopping until we got to Zoe's house. We were gasping for breath, our legs burning, and when I looked at my phone, it was 1:47 a.m. But that couldn't be right. We'd only been in the house for maybe 20 minutes. How had almost 2 hours passed? Look at the picture, I said. The one you took in the bedroom. Zoe pulled out her phone with shaking hands and opened her photos. The picture of the bedroom was there. But it wasn't empty. The little girl was in the photo, standing right in the middle of the room, staring directly at the camera. Her mouth was open, too wide, showing too many teeth. And she was reaching toward the camera, her arms stretched out, her fingers too long, too thin, almost like claws. Delete it, I said. Delete it right now. Zoe tried. She pressed delete, but the phone made an error sound. She tried again. Same thing. The picture wouldn't delete. It's just a glitch, she said, but her voice was shaking. I'll delete it tomorrow. We didn't sleep that night. We sat up in Zoe's room with all the lights on, jumping at every sound. When morning finally came, we thought maybe we'd be okay. Maybe it was over. We were so wrong. That night, Saturday night, I was in my room doing homework when I heard tapping on my window. Light, rhythmic tapping, like someone knocking with one finger. I looked up, and my blood turned to ice. The little girl was outside my window. Just floating there, 3 stories up, her wet hair drifting around her face like she was underwater. Her black eyes stared at me, and her mouth moved, forming words I couldn't hear through the glass. Let me in. Let me in. Let me in. I screamed and ran out of my room. My parents came running, asking what was wrong, and when we went back to look, the window was empty. Nothing there. My dad checked outside with a flashlight, but there was no one. No ladder, no way anyone could have reached my 3rd-story window. You just had a nightmare, my mom said, rubbing my back. You fell asleep doing homework. But I hadn't been asleep. I know I hadn't. I called Zoe. She answered on the first ring, and I could tell she'd been crying. She's here, Zoe whispered. She's in my house. I can hear her walking around downstairs. My parents can't hear it, but I can. Little footsteps, going from room to room. And she's singing, Emma. She's singing this creepy lullaby. What do we do? I didn't know. I didn't know what to do. We were just kids. How are we supposed to fight a ghost? The next few days were horrible. The little girl appeared everywhere. I'd see her reflection in mirrors, standing behind me. I'd see her at school, watching me from the end of hallways. I'd see her outside my house at night, standing on the sidewalk, staring up at my window. And the singing. Always the singing. That sad, eerie lullaby that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Zoe was getting worse. She stopped coming to school. When I went to check on her, her mom said she was sick, but I saw Zoe looking out her bedroom window, and she looked terrible. Her face was thin and pale, with dark circles under her eyes like she hadn't slept in days. I tried researching online, looking for information about the lighthouse keeper's daughter. I found old newspaper articles about the death. Her name was Margaret. She was 7 years old when she fell from the cliffs during a storm. But there was more to the story than the local legends said. According to the articles, Margaret didn't fall by accident. She jumped. And before she jumped, she'd been acting strange for weeks. Talking to herself, saying she heard voices calling to her from the ocean. Her parents thought she was just playing pretend, but the night she died, witnesses said she walked to the cliff edge like she was in a trance, and then she just stepped off. They never found her body. The ocean took it. But here's the really scary part. I found 3 other articles, from different years. In 1923, a teenager went missing near the lighthouse. In 1954, 2 kids disappeared after exploring the keeper's house. In 1987, a young girl drowned in the ocean near the lighthouse, and her friends said she'd been acting strange before it happened, saying she heard a little girl calling her name. Every 20 or 30 years, someone young goes missing or dies near that lighthouse. And it always happens after they go into the keeper's house. I think Margaret didn't just die. I think something in the ocean called to her, something that lives in the deep water and the fog, and it took her. And now she's not really Margaret anymore. She's something else, something that uses her shape, her voice. And she's looking for friends. She's looking for other kids to join her, to come down into the cold, dark water and never leave. And we'd gone into her room. We'd taken her picture. We'd gotten her attention. 2 nights ago, Zoe called me at 3 a.m. She was whispering, and I could barely hear her. Emma, she's in my room. Right now. She's standing at the foot of my bed, and she's asking me to come with her. She says it's lonely in the water. She says she wants a friend. She says if I just come with her, I won't be scared anymore. I won't be tired anymore. I'll just sleep, forever, in the quiet and the dark. Don't listen to her, I said, trying not to cry. Don't go with her, Zoe. Please. But I'm so tired, Emma. I'm so tired. And she's holding out her hand, and her hand looks so cold, and I just want to rest. I just want it all to stop. Zoe, no. Don't, the line went dead. I tried calling back a dozen times. No answer. I ran to my parents' room and woke them up, and we drove to Zoe's house. Her parents met us at the door, confused and worried. They went to check Zoe's room. She was gone. The window was open, the curtains blowing in the ocean breeze. They found wet footprints on the carpet, leading from the bed to the window. Small footprints, child-sized, going to Zoe's bed and then back to the window. And 2 sets of footprints leaving. One small, one larger. Zoe's footprints, walking with the little ghost girl. The police searched for 3 days. They found Zoe's phone on the beach near the lighthouse, but they never found Zoe. The official report said she must have fallen from the cliffs, and the ocean took her body, just like it took Margaret over 100 years ago. But I know the truth. The ocean didn't take her. Margaret took her. Down into the cold, dark water where she lives now, where she's been living since 1889, collecting friends, dragging them down one by one into whatever horrible place she calls home. And she's not done with me. Last night, I found wet footprints in my room, leading from my window to my bed, and then back to my window. She was here. While I was sleeping, she was standing next to my bed, watching me, deciding when to take me. The picture on Zoe's phone, the one that wouldn't delete? It's on my phone now. I never downloaded it, but it's there, in my photo gallery. And every time I look at it, Margaret is closer to the camera. Today, she's so close I can see every detail of her dead face, her reaching hands just inches from the lens. Tomorrow, I think, she'll be close enough to touch. I can hear the singing now, even during the day. That sad lullaby, calling me, telling me to come home, to come to the lighthouse, to come to the water. My parents think I'm sick. They want to take me to a doctor. But no doctor can help me. I'm writing this as a warning. If you live on the Oregon coast, if you ever visit Yatchits, stay away from the old Heseda Head Lighthouse Keeper's house. Don't go inside. Don't take pictures. Don't look in Margaret's room. Because if you see her, she'll see you. And once she sees you, she'll follow you home. She'll appear in your mirrors, at your windows, at the foot of your bed. She'll sing to you, call to you, ask you to be her friend. And eventually, no matter how hard you fight, you'll go to her. You'll walk to the lighthouse, you'll walk to the cliffs, and you'll walk into the ocean. And you'll sink down, down, down into the cold and the dark, where Margaret and all her other friends are waiting. I can hear her now. She's outside my window again, tapping on the glass. But this time she's not alone. There's someone with her. Someone who looks like Zoe, but wrong, with pale skin and wet hair and black, empty eyes. They're both waving at me. Both asking me to open the window, to come with them, to join them in the water where it's quiet and peaceful and forever. I'm so tired. I haven't slept in days. And the ocean sounds nice. The ocean sounds like rest, like peace, like the end of being scared. My hand is on the window latch. I know I shouldn't open it. I know what will happen if I do. But they're my friends. Margaret and Zoe. They're waiting for me. And they look so sad, so lonely, so desperate for me to join them. The water is calling. The deep, dark water where nothing hurts anymore. Where everything is quiet and cold and still. I think I'm going to open the window now. I think I'm going to go with them. If you find this, tell my parents I'm sorry. Tell them I love them. Tell them I couldn't help it. The ocean wanted me, and Margaret showed me the way home. The trees remember everything. My name is David, and I'm 13 years old. I live in Forks, Washington, in the same house my family has lived in for 3 generations. My grandpa built this house in 1952, right on the edge of the Hoh rainforest. My dad always said we were lucky to live so close to one of the most beautiful places in the world. All those giant trees, some of them over 500 years old, covered in moss and ferns, with branches so thick they block out the sun. I used to think it was beautiful too. But that was before I learned what the trees remember. Before I learned what they do to people who forget the old rules. It started 3 months ago, in July, when my cousin Ryan came to visit from Seattle. Ryan was 15 and thought he was so cool because he lived in the city. He made fun of everything about Forks, how small it was, how quiet, how there was nothing to do. He was especially rude about the forest. "It's just trees," he said. "Why does everyone act like this place is so special? Trees are trees." My grandma heard him say that, and her face went pale. She's 86 years old, and I've never seen her look scared before, but she looked scared then. "Don't say that," she told Ryan. "Don't ever disrespect the forest. The old trees are listening. Always listening." Ryan laughed at her. "Okay, Grandma. Whatever you say." That night, Grandma pulled me aside while Ryan was playing video games. She looked serious, worried. "David, I need to tell you something important." Something I should have told you years ago. There are rules about the forest, rules that have been here longer than any of us. My grandmother told them to me, and her grandmother told her, going back and back as far as anyone can remember. She made me promise to listen, so I did. She told me the rules: never take anything from the forest that isn't already dead and on the ground. No breaking branches, no picking flowers, no carving into bark. Never speak badly about the trees. They can hear you, and they remember. If you walk in the forest and you see a tree that looks wrong, twisted in a strange way, or with bark that looks like a face, or with branches that seem to reach toward you, walk away quickly and don't look back. If you hear someone calling your name from deep in the forest, never follow the voice. It's not who you think it is. If you find something in the forest that doesn't belong, clothes, jewelry, personal items, don't touch them. Those things belong to the trees now. And the most important rule: if a tree asks you for something, never, ever say yes. I asked her what she meant about trees asking for things. Trees can't talk, right? She just looked at me with sad, old eyes and said, "You'd be surprised what trees can do when they want to. Your great uncle learned that the hard way." We lost him to the forest in 1967. He went in and never came out. We found his jacket hanging from a branch 3 miles in, but no other trace of him. The forest took him because he forgot the rules. I didn't know if I believed her, but she seemed so serious that I promised to follow the rules. I told Ryan about them later that night, thinking maybe it would make him take the forest more seriously. He just laughed harder. "Your grandma's losing it, man. Trees that ask for things? Voices in the forest? That's such garbage. It's just a bunch of plants." The next day, Ryan wanted to go hiking. My dad said okay, as long as we stayed on the marked trails and took our phones. We headed into the Hoh rainforest on one of the popular trails, the one that goes past the big Sitka spruces and the Hall of Mosses. For the first hour, everything was normal. The forest was beautiful like always, shafts of sunlight coming through the canopy, everything green and alive, the sound of the Hoh River in the distance. But Ryan kept doing things that made me nervous. He'd snap branches off trees for no reason. He'd kick mushrooms. He carved his initials into a cedar tree with his pocket knife. "Ryan, stop," I kept saying. "You're not supposed to do that." "Who's going to stop me? The tree police?" He laughed and carved deeper. "I swear, I heard something then. A sound like wind in the branches, but there was no wind. A sound like whispering, like dozens of voices talking at once, too quiet to understand but definitely there." Ryan heard it too. He stopped carving and looked around. "What was that?" "I don't know. Let's go back." But Ryan wanted to keep going. We walked deeper into the forest, off the marked trail now, and that's when we saw it. A tree that looked wrong. It was a massive western hemlock, easily 200 feet tall, but its trunk was twisted in this impossible spiral, like someone had wrung it out like a wet towel. And in the bark, there were patterns that looked like faces. Dozens of faces, all screaming, all reaching out from inside the wood like they were trapped there. "Whoa," Ryan said. "That's actually creepy." One of Grandma's rules flashed in my mind: if you see a tree that looks wrong, walk away quickly and don't look back. "We should go," I said. "Right now." But Ryan walked right up to the tree. He put his hand on the bark, tracing one of the face shapes with his finger. "I wonder what made it grow like this. Some kind of disease, probably." "Ryan, please. Let's just go." He pulled out his knife again. "I'm going to take a piece of this bark. Show it to my biology teacher back home. This is actually interesting." "No!" I shouted, but it was too late. He stuck the knife into the bark and started prying a piece loose. The tree made a sound. Not a creaking sound like when trees fall. This was different. It was a groan, low and deep and full of anger. The ground under our feet shook, just a little, and all around us, the forest went completely silent. No birds. No insects. No wind. Just silence, heavy and waiting. Ryan dropped his knife. The piece of bark he'd pulled off had something dark underneath it. Not wood. Something wet and red, like flesh, like he'd cut into something living. "We need to run," I whispered. "Now." We ran. We crashed through the underbrush, not caring about the trail anymore, just trying to get away from that tree. Behind us, I heard movement. Huge, slow movement, like something massive shifting position. I didn't look back. I remembered the rule. Never look back. We ran for what felt like forever, until we finally found the main trail again. We followed it back to the parking lot, got in our car, and drove home. Neither of us talked about what happened. That night, Ryan started acting weird. He was quiet at dinner, just staring at his food. When my mom asked if he was okay, he said he had a headache. He went to bed early, and I thought maybe he was just freaked out and needed sleep. But around midnight, I woke up to a sound. Scratching. Coming from Ryan's room next to mine. I got up and knocked on his door. "Ryan? You okay?" No answer. Just more scratching. I opened the door. Ryan was sitting on his bed, hunched over, his back to me. He was scratching at his arm with his fingernails, scratching so hard he was bleeding. "Ryan, stop. What are you doing?" He turned to look at me, and I almost screamed. His eyes were wrong. They weren't his normal brown. They were green, like moss green, like plant green. And when he talked, his voice sounded strange, deeper, with an echo like he was talking from inside a cave. "The tree wants its piece back," he said. "I took something that wasn't mine. Now I have to give something in return." "What are you talking about?" "Ryan, you're scaring me." He went back to scratching his arm, and I saw what he was doing. He wasn't just scratching. He was digging, trying to dig into his own arm like he was trying to pull something out. Or put something in. I ran and got my parents. They called 911, and an ambulance came and took Ryan to the hospital. The doctors said he was having some kind of breakdown, maybe from drugs, though Ryan swore he hadn't taken anything. They sedated him and kept him overnight for observation. The next morning, my dad got a call from the hospital. Ryan was gone. Not gone like he'd left, gone like he'd vanished. The nurses checked on him at 6 a.m. and he was sleeping in his bed. They checked again at 6:30, and the bed was empty. The window was still locked from the inside. The door had been watched all night. There was no way he could have left. But he was gone. We went to the hospital, and the police came, and everyone searched. They found Ryan's hospital gown in the parking lot. And next to it, in the dirt, were footprints. Bare footprints, leading from the hospital door into the grass, and then into the woods behind the hospital. But here's the thing. The footprints changed. They started out normal, like human feet. But as they went, they got longer, thinner, with too many toes. And then they weren't footprints anymore. They were drag marks, like something with roots, like Ryan was turning into something else as he walked, like he was becoming part of the forest. The police followed the trail for 3 miles before they lost it. They searched for 5 days. Search and rescue, dogs, helicopters, everything. They never found Ryan. But I know where he is. I went back to that twisted hemlock tree, the one with the faces in the bark. I went by myself, even though I was terrified. And I found him. He was there, in the bark. His face, screaming, reaching out, trapped inside the wood just like all the other faces. His eyes were open, and they were still that terrible moss green, and they followed me when I walked around the tree. I tried to touch the bark where his face was, and I heard his voice. Faint, like it was coming from far away, like he was calling from the bottom of a well. "Help me, David. Please. I'm stuck. I'm stuck and I can't get out and it hurts. Everything hurts. I can feel roots growing through me. I can feel bark covering my skin. Help me. Please." I tried. I ran home and got an axe from our garage, and I went back to the tree. I was going to cut him out, save him somehow. But when I raised the axe, every tree around me groaned. That same deep, angry sound. And I heard Grandma's voice in my head, "Never hurt the trees. They remember." I dropped the axe and ran. I'm ashamed of it, but I ran. I left Ryan there, trapped in that tree, screaming for help, and I ran. That was 2 months ago. Ryan is still officially missing. His parents come by sometimes, crying, asking if we've heard anything. I can't tell them the truth. Who would believe me? They'd think I was crazy. But I go back sometimes, to check on him. Each time I go, his face is smaller, less clear, like he's sinking deeper into the wood. Last week, I could barely see him at all. Just the outline of his face, and one hand, pressing against the bark from the inside, trying to push through. And there are new faces now. 3 of them, appearing in the bark. I recognized one of them from the news, a hiker who went missing in the forest last month. The forest is taking more people, adding them to the tree, feeding on them somehow. I told my grandma what happened. She cried. She said it wasn't my fault, that Ryan made his choice when he disrespected the forest, when he took what wasn't his to take. She said the trees remember everything, every slight, every broken branch, every person who treated them like they were nothing. And eventually, the trees take payment. The forest has been here for thousands of years, she told me. Long before us, and long after we're gone. It remembers every person who's walked through it. And it doesn't forget disrespect. I follow the rules now. I'm careful. I never take anything. I never hurt the trees. I speak respectfully when I'm in the forest. And I stay on the marked trails. But sometimes, late at night, I hear scratching on my bedroom window. When I look, there's nothing there. But in the morning, there are marks on the glass. Not scratches. These are like root marks, like something with wooden fingers was tapping on my window, checking on me, reminding me that the forest is watching. And sometimes I hear voices in the wind, calling my name from the direction of the forest. I never answer. I remember the rule. If you hear someone calling your name from deep in the forest, never follow the voice. Because I know it's Ryan. Or what used to be Ryan. The forest has his voice now, just like it has his body. And it's using his voice to call to me, to try to trick me into going back to that twisted tree, so I can join him and all the others trapped in the bark. I'm writing this as a warning to anyone who lives near the old forests of the Pacific Northwest, especially the Hoh rainforest. Respect the trees. Follow the old rules. Don't take what isn't yours. Don't hurt the trees. Don't disrespect them. Because the trees remember everything. Every slight. Every hurt. Every person who treated them like they were nothing. And eventually, the trees collect what they're owed. My grandma is teaching me the other rules now, the ones that go even deeper, the ones about how to make peace with the forest if you've angered it. But she says for some people, like Ryan, it's too late. Once the forest takes you, really takes you, you become part of it forever. Last night I had a dream. I was walking through the forest, and every tree I passed had faces in the bark. Hundreds of them, thousands of them, all the people the forest has taken over the centuries. All of them were whispering my name, asking me to join them, telling me that one day I would. And the worst part? Deep down, I think they're right. I live on the edge of the forest. I'm part of it whether I want to be or not. And one day, I'll make a mistake. I'll forget a rule. I'll say the wrong thing, or hurt a tree without meaning to. And when that happens, the trees will remember. And they'll come for me, just like they came for Ryan. The forest is patient. It can wait forever. And it never, ever forgets. The Watchers in the Rain. My name is Sophie, and I'm 14 years old. I live in a town called Astoria, Oregon, right where the Columbia River meets the Pacific Ocean. If you've never been here, you should know one thing: it rains. It rains more here than almost anywhere else in America. Sometimes it rains for weeks without stopping. The sky stays gray, the streets stay wet, and everything smells like mold and ocean. Most people who live here get used to it. We have rain boots and rain jackets and umbrellas everywhere. We don't cancel school for rain. We don't stay inside just because it's pouring. Rain is just part of life in Astoria. But after what happened to me last month, I'm afraid of the rain. I'm afraid of what might be walking around in it, hiding in the downpour, watching us. It started on a Friday in March. The rain had been going for 11 days straight, not even stopping for an hour. Everything was soaked. The gutters were overflowing, the streets had huge puddles, and our basement had started flooding. My dad was constantly running the sump pump, trying to keep the water out. I was in my room after school, doing homework and listening to the rain hammer against my window, when I saw something outside that made me stop and stare. There was someone standing in our backyard. Just standing there in the pouring rain, not moving. They wore a long coat with a hood, so I couldn't see their face, and they were facing our house. Facing my window. I watched for a minute, feeling uncomfortable. Why would someone just stand in the rain like that? Were they lost? Were they watching our house? I went downstairs to tell my mom. There's someone in our backyard. She looked up from her laptop, frowning. What? Someone's standing in the backyard. In the rain. Just standing there. We both went to the back door and looked out. The backyard was empty. Nobody there. Just rain and our half-drowned grass and my dad's tool shed. You probably just saw a shadow or something, my mom said. This rain can play tricks on your eyes. But I knew what I'd seen. Someone had been there. I was sure of it. That night, I had trouble sleeping. The rain was so loud, pounding on the roof, and I kept thinking about the person in the coat. Around midnight, I got up to use the bathroom. When I passed the window in the hallway, I looked out into the street. There were 3 of them now. 3 figures in long coats with hoods, standing in the rain in the middle of our street. Just standing there, perfectly still, all facing our house. I ran to my parents' room and woke up my dad. Dad, there are people outside. In the street. Just standing there. He got up, grumbling about it being the middle of the night, and looked out the window. Nothing. The street was empty. Sophie, you're seeing things. Go back to bed. But they were there. I saw them. It's just the rain, honey. The streetlights make weird shadows in the rain. Now please, go to sleep. We all need rest. I went back to my room, but I didn't sleep. I sat by my window, watching the street. And just before dawn, I saw them again. Not 3 this time. 7. 7 figures in coats, all standing in the rain, all facing different houses on our street. One was facing our house. One was facing the Johnsons' house across the street. One was facing the Garcias' house next door. They stood there for maybe 10 minutes, not moving at all despite the rain pouring down on them. Then, just as the sky started getting lighter, they all turned at the same time and walked away. Not walked. Glided. They moved so smoothly, like they were floating just above the ground, and they all went in different directions, disappearing around corners in between houses. At breakfast, I tried to tell my parents again, but they didn't believe me. My mom thought I was having nightmares. My dad thought I needed to spend less time on my phone before bed. They didn't understand. These weren't dreams. This was real. At school, I told my best friend Maria about it. She believed me, sort of. Maria believes in weird stuff. She's always reading about ghosts and UFOs and cryptids. Maybe they're ghosts, she suggested. Astoria is a really old town. Lots of people have died here. Maybe they're spirits who don't know they're dead, just wandering around in the rain. But they didn't feel like ghosts. They felt like something else. Something watching. Something waiting. That afternoon, Maria came home with me after school. We were going to do homework together, but really, we wanted to watch for the figures. We sat up in my room with a good view of the street and the backyard. Around 5 p.m., when it was starting to get dark, Maria grabbed my arm. "There," she whispered, pointing out the window. One of them was back. Standing in our backyard, in the same spot as before. Just standing there in the rain, facing our house. "Should we go talk to it?" Maria asked. "Are you crazy?" "No. But maybe they need help. Maybe they're lost or hurt or something." Before I could stop her, Maria ran downstairs. I chased after her, and we both went to the back door. Maria opened it and yelled out into the rain. "Hello? Do you need help? Are you okay?" The figure didn't move. Didn't respond. Just stood there. Maria stepped out onto the porch, and I grabbed her arm. "Don't. Something's wrong with it." "How do you know it's in it?" Maria asked, but she sounded less sure now. The figure started moving toward us. Slowly, smoothly, gliding across the wet grass. As it got closer, I could see that something was definitely wrong. The coat it wore was dripping with rain, but the water wasn't falling off like it should. It was moving up the coat, flowing upward against gravity, like the rain was being absorbed into the fabric, or into whatever was underneath. And where its face should have been under the hood, there was nothing. Just darkness. Not shadows. Complete darkness, like the hood was empty, like there was nothing inside the coat at all. "Run," I whispered to Maria. We slammed the door and locked it. Through the window, we watched the figure stop at the edge of the porch. It stood there for a moment, then slowly raised one arm and pointed at us. At least, I think it pointed. The sleeve moved like there was an arm inside, but I couldn't see a hand, just more of that impossible darkness. Then it turned and glided away, disappearing around the side of the house. Maria was shaking. "What was that?" "That wasn't a person. That wasn't anything normal." We told my mom what we'd seen. She went outside with an umbrella to check the backyard, but of course, there was nothing there. She came back in and gave us a lecture about not going outside in a storm, about using our imaginations too much, about scary movies and scary stories getting into our heads. But I knew what we'd seen. And so did Maria. That night, I looked out my window every hour. At 10 p.m., there were 5 of them. At midnight, there were 10. At 2 a.m., there were at least 20, all standing in the rain, all facing different houses, all perfectly still. And this time, I noticed something else. In every house they were facing, someone was awake. I could see bedroom lights on, see people moving around inside. The Johnsons were up. The Garcias were up. The Chens down the street were up. Everyone who had one of those figures watching their house couldn't sleep. The next morning at school, everyone looked exhausted. Dark circles under their eyes, yawning constantly. In my first period class, 3 kids fell asleep at their desks. At lunch, Maria and I asked around. Did anyone else see weird people standing outside their houses last night? I asked a group of kids from our grade. They all looked at each other nervously. Finally, a boy named Derek spoke up. "Yeah. I saw someone standing in our driveway. In the rain. My dad went out to check, but nobody was there. Then an hour later, they were back." "Same," said a girl named Hannah. "In our backyard. My mom called the police, but by the time they came, the person was gone. By the end of lunch, we'd found 12 other kids who'd seen the figures. All of them were in Astoria. All of them had seen people in long coats, standing in the rain, watching their houses." "We should tell someone," Maria said. "Like, the police or the news or something." "But who would believe us? A bunch of kids saying they saw creepy people in the rain? Adults already thought we were just being dramatic or watching too many scary movies." That night, the figures multiplied again. I counted 40 of them from my window, all standing in the rain throughout our neighborhood. And this time, something new happened. Around 3 a.m., they all started moving at the same time. They walked to the houses they'd been watching, right up to the front doors, and they just stood there. One of them came to our front door. I could hear it through the house, the sound of water dripping on our porch. My dad heard it too. He got up and looked through the peephole in the front door. I heard him gasp, and then he stumbled backward. "John?" "What is it?" my mom asked, coming out of their bedroom. "Nothing," he said, but his voice was shaking. "Nothing's there. Just rain. Just rain." But I knew he'd seen it. I knew he'd finally seen one of the figures up close. And whatever he saw through that peephole had scared him badly. The next day was Saturday. The rain still hadn't stopped. It had been raining for 15 days now, and the whole town was flooding. The roads were rivers. Businesses were closing. People were talking about evacuating if it didn't stop soon. And the figures kept multiplying. By Saturday night, I could see hundreds of them from my window. They were everywhere, standing on every street, in every yard, filling the town like an army of rain-soaked soldiers. Maria called me, crying. "Sophie, they're in my house." "What?" "The figures. They're inside. I can hear them walking around downstairs. That gliding sound, and the water dripping. My parents won't listen to me. They say I'm having a panic attack. But I can hear them. They're searching for something. They're going through every room. Lock your door," I told her. "Don't let them in." But even as I said it, I heard something downstairs in my own house. That gliding sound. That dripping. My bedroom door was locked, but I heard them in the hallway outside. Multiple footsteps, or the sound of multiple things moving, all that horrible smooth gliding. My door handle turned. Slowly. Testing to see if it was locked. I pushed my dresser in front of the door and climbed into my closet with my phone. I called 911. 911, what's your emergency?" "There are people in my house," I whispered. "They broke in. They're trying to get into my room." "Ma'am, please stay calm. What's your address?" I gave her my address, and she said police were on the way. But I could hear more of them now. On the roof. Scratching. Scraping. Like they were trying to find a way in through the ceiling. My window shattered. Rain and glass flew everywhere. One of the figures was climbing through, that dark hood still hiding whatever passed for its face. Its coat dripped and dripped, water flowing up instead of down, defying physics, defying reality. I screamed and called my dad. He burst into my room, he must have broken the door, and he froze when he saw the figure climbing through my window. "Get out," he said, grabbing me. "Get out of the house. Now." We ran downstairs. My mom was there, pale and terrified. The figures were everywhere, gliding through our house, searching, always searching. We ran out the front door into the rain. The street was full of people. Our neighbors, all running out of their houses, all soaked and scared. The figures were going into every house now, dozens of them, hundreds of them, filling the town. Police cars came, sirens blaring. But when the police tried to stop the figures, tried to grab them or block their way, their hands went right through them. The figures weren't solid. They were made of rain, or darkness, or something that couldn't be touched. We all gathered in the street, neighbors and families, watching as the figures searched our homes. They glided from room to room, looking at everything, touching nothing, just observing with their impossible empty faces. Then, just as suddenly as they'd come, they left. All at once, every figure in every house glided out, reformed in the streets, and started walking away. They moved as one, flowing like water, heading toward the river, toward the ocean. We followed them. I don't know why, but we had to see where they were going. Half the town followed them through the rain, through the flooded streets, down to the waterfront. At the edge of the river, the figures stopped. They all turned to look at us one last time, hundreds of empty hoods facing our way. Then they walked into the water. They didn't sink or float. They just merged with the rain and the river, becoming part of the water, dissolving into it until there was nothing left but the storm. And then, finally, After 16 days, the rain stopped. The clouds parted. The sun came out for the first time in over 2 weeks. The authorities said it was mass hysteria. Too many days of rain, too much stress from the flooding, causing everyone to see things that weren't there. But I know what I saw. So does Maria. So does my dad. So do hundreds of people in Astoria. The figures came with the rain. They walked among us, watching us, learning about us. And when they were done, when they'd seen everything they needed to see, they went back into the water, back into whatever impossible place they came from. But I know they'll come back. Because it's starting to rain again. It started this morning, just a light drizzle, but the weather forecast says a big storm is coming. 2 weeks of rain, maybe more. And last night, I looked out my window at 2 a.m., and I saw one. Just one so far. Standing in the street in the rain. Facing my house. They're back. And this time, I don't think they're just watching. I think they're taking people with them. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, is missing. She went to bed last night and wasn't there this morning. Her family found her bedroom window open, rain soaking the carpet, and wet footprints leading from her bed to the window. But the footprints don't look human. They're too long, too smooth, like something glided across the floor rather than walked. 3 more people disappeared last night. All from houses where the figures stood watch. I'm writing this as a warning. If you live in the Pacific Northwest, if you see figures standing in the rain outside your house, don't ignore them. Board up your windows. Lock your doors. Don't let them inside. And whatever you do, don't follow them to the water. Because once you go into the water with them, you don't come back. The rain is getting heavier. I can see 5 of them now, standing in our street. One is facing our house. My window just opened by itself. Rain is blowing in. I can hear that gliding sound on the stairs. They're coming for me. If you're reading this, please remember, they come with the rain. They watch. They learn. And when the storm is strong enough, they take what they want. Don't let them take you. Don't. The town that drowned my name is Lily, and I'm 13 years old. I live in a town called Concrete, Washington, in the North Cascades. It's a really small town, maybe 700 people, surrounded by mountains and forests and the Skagit River. Most people have never heard of it, and that's probably a good thing. Because there's something wrong with concrete. Something that's been wrong for a very long time. And I think it's getting worse. Let me start from the beginning. 3 months ago, my mom got a new job, and we had to move here from Spokane. I wasn't happy about it. I had to leave my friends, my school, everything I knew. Concrete felt like the middle of nowhere, and the kids at my new school weren't exactly welcoming. But there was one girl who was nice to me. Her name was Rebecca, and she was in my grade. She showed me around, ate lunch with me, and invited me to her house after school. I was grateful to have at least one friend. Rebecca lived in an old house on the edge of town, near the river. It was kind of run down, with peeling paint and a sagging porch, but it was cozy inside. Her mom made us snacks, and we went up to Rebecca's room to do homework. That's when I noticed the drawings. Rebecca's walls were covered with them, hundreds of drawings, all in crayon and marker, all showing the same thing. Water. Rising water. Buildings underwater. People swimming, or drowning, or floating. And in every picture, there was something else in the water with them. Something dark and huge, with too many arms or tentacles or something. Did you draw all these? I asked. Rebecca looked embarrassed. Yeah. I know they're weird. I've been having the same dream since I was little, and drawing it helps me feel better. What's the dream about? She was quiet for a moment, then said, the town drowns. The river rises and rises, and the whole town goes underwater. And there's something in the water, something that's been waiting a long time. And it finally gets to come up and take us. That's pretty dark, I said, trying to joke about it. Maybe you shouldn't watch scary movies before bed. But Rebecca didn't smile. It's not from a movie. It's real. I mean, it feels real. And it's not just me. Lots of kids in town have the same dream. We've talked about it. We all see the same thing, the water rising, the town drowning, the thing in the river. That gave me chills. Maybe you guys talked about it first, and then started having the same dream because you were thinking about it. No, Rebecca said firmly. We all had the dream before we talked about it. And it's always been the same. My mom says her grandmother had the dream too, back when she was a kid. And her grandmother before that. It's like something that runs in families here. Like it's in the water or the air or something. I didn't know what to say to that. It was creepy, but I figured it was just a coincidence. Small town, similar environment, similar dreams. That made sense, right? But then I started noticing other things. The adults in town all seemed worried about something. They'd gather in small groups and talk in low voices, looking around nervously like they didn't want kids to hear. The river was unusually high that winter, and there was a lot of rain. People kept checking the water level, measuring it, comparing it to previous years. And the old people looked scared. Really scared. I'd see them standing by the river, staring at the water with these haunted expressions, like they were waiting for something terrible to happen. One day in school, our teacher Mrs. Patterson was talking about the history of concrete. She mentioned that the town was built near the site of an old Native American village, a village that was abandoned suddenly in the 1700s. Does anyone know why they left? She asked. An old kid named Daniel raised his hand. My grandpa said it was because of the thing in the river. The natives knew it was there, and they knew it was hungry, so they left before it could take them. Mrs. Patterson's face went pale. Daniel, that's just a legend. There's no thing in the river. Then why do we all dream about it? Daniel asked. Why does everyone in town have the same nightmare? Mrs. Patterson didn't answer. She just changed the subject really quickly, and I noticed her hands were shaking when she wrote on the board. That night, I asked my mom if she'd heard anything about a legend of something in the river. She looked uncomfortable. It's just a local superstition, honey. Small towns always have stories like that. Don't worry about it. But I could tell she was lying. Or at least not telling me everything. I started having the dream myself about a week later. It was exactly like Rebecca described. I was standing in our house, and I heard water. Not dripping or running, a huge amount of water, like waves crashing. I ran to the window and saw the river had risen over its banks. It was flooding the streets, filling the town, rising higher and higher. I tried to run, but the water came through the walls, through the floor, everywhere at once. Cold, dark water that tasted like mud and rot. I was swimming, trying to stay above it, but it kept rising, and soon I couldn't see the buildings anymore. Everything was underwater. And that's when I felt it. Something huge moving beneath me. Something that had been waiting at the bottom of the river for a very, very long time. Something that was finally free to hunt. I woke up screaming. My mom came running into my room, and when I told her about the dream, she looked terrified. It's starting again, she whispered. Oh God, it's time again. Time for what? I demanded. Mom, what's going on? She sat on my bed and took a deep breath. Lily, there's something I need to tell you. Something about why we really moved here. She explained that our family has roots in concrete going back generations. My great-great-grandmother lived here as a child. But in 1921, something happened. The river flooded, worse than it ever had before. 14 people died. And the survivors all said the same thing, that something came up from the water. Something huge and ancient that pulled people under, that fed on them. After the flood, people tried to leave, my mom said. But they couldn't. Anyone who was born here, or whose family came from here, felt this pull to come back. Like the thing in the river had marked them somehow. Your great-great-grandmother left and started a new life in Spokane, but she always felt drawn back to concrete. She said she could hear the river calling her. "That's insane," I said. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because I didn't think it was real. I thought it was just family stories, trauma passed down through generations. But then I started having the dreams too, a few months ago. And I felt this overwhelming need to come back here. I got the job offer, and it felt like fate. Like I was supposed to come back. But why?" My mom's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know. But I think something's waking up. I think whatever's in that river is getting ready to surface again. And everyone who's connected to this town, everyone whose family was touched by it before, is being called back. To feed it." I didn't want to believe her. But the next day at school, I asked around. Almost every kid I talked to had parents or grandparents who'd moved away from concrete, then suddenly moved back in the last year. Families that hadn't lived here in decades were returning. The town's population had doubled. We were all being gathered here. All being called back. Like sheep being herded into a pen before slaughter. The river kept rising. It rained every day, heavy rain that never seemed to stop. The adults started reinforcing flood barriers and sandbagging houses. But I could see in their faces that they knew it wouldn't help. The water was coming no matter what they did. Rebecca and I tried to convince our parents to leave. We begged them. But they couldn't. When they tried to drive out of town, they'd make it a few miles, then feel this overwhelming panic and have to turn back. "We can't leave," my mom said, crying. "I can't explain it, but if I try to go, it feels like dying. Like I'll suffocate or my heart will stop. We're trapped here, Lily. Whatever's in that river has us, and it won't let go until it's fed." Last night, the dreams got worse. In the dream, I was underwater, and I could see the thing clearly for the first time. It was huge, bigger than a whale, with a body covered in scales or armor or something like both. It had dozens of limbs, some like tentacles, some like arms, all reaching up through the dark water. And it had a face, or something like a face. Multiple eyes, a mouth that was too big and full of teeth like needles. And worst of all, I could hear it thinking. It didn't speak, but I could feel its thoughts pressing against my mind. It was hungry. So hungry. It had been sleeping at the bottom of the river for almost 100 years, waiting, and now it was time to feed again. "You called me," it thought at me. "You and all the others. Your blood calls to mine. Your family's fed me before, and now it's time again. The cycle continues. Come to me. Come into the water. Feed me so I can sleep again." I woke up, and this time, my clothes were soaking wet. Not with sweat. With river water. I could smell it, that distinctive muddy, rotten smell of the Skagit River. This morning, the river broke through all the flood barriers. Water is filling the streets right now as I write this. It's coming faster than anyone expected, rising higher than the weather forecast predicted. This isn't natural flooding. This is the thing calling the water, raising it, drowning the town on purpose. People are evacuating to higher ground, to the school on the hill. But I don't think that will help. The water is still rising, and it's going to cover everything. And I can feel it now, even when I'm awake. That thing in the river, calling to me. My blood calls to its blood. My great-great-grandmother survived the last flooding, but she gave something to the thing in the river, a promise, maybe, or a piece of her soul. And now it wants what she owed. It wants me. Rebecca came to my house an hour ago. Her family too. We're all here, all the families that came back to town, all trapped together as the water rises. "We have to give it what it wants," Rebecca's mom said. "That's the only way to make it stop. The old stories say 13 people have to go into the water willingly. 13 to feed it, and then it sleeps for another 100 years. "You mean sacrifices," my mom said, horrified. "You want to send our children to die?" "Not all of them," Rebecca's mom said. "Just 13. And they have to be willing. That's the rule. volunteers who go into the water to save everyone else. I looked around the room. There were about 40 of us here, all families that had been called back to concrete. And I could see the same terrible calculation happening in everyone's eyes. Who would volunteer? Who would sacrifice themselves so the others could live? Rebecca took my hand. "I'll go," she said quietly. "I've been dreaming about it my whole life. I think that means I was always meant to go." "No," I said. "There has to be another way." But as I looked out the window at the rising water, at the dark shapes moving beneath the surface, I knew there wasn't another way. The thing in the river had been sleeping for 100 years, and now it was awake and hungry. Either we fed it, or it would take everyone. 13 people have volunteered. Rebecca is one of them. Daniel from my class is another. Some are kids, some are adults. They're all people who've been having the dreams the longest, who've felt the call the strongest. They're going to walk into the river in 1 hour. And when they do, the thing will take them down into the deep water, and it will feed, and then it will sleep again. And the rest of us will survive. We'll rebuild the town. We'll live our lives. Until our children and grandchildren start having the dreams, start hearing the river call to them. And in 100 years, they'll be called back here, just like we were. Because that's the cycle. That's how it works. The thing in the river feeds, then sleeps, then wakes hungry again. And the families it touches can never truly leave. We're bound to it forever, generation after generation. I'm writing this as a warning. If you have family from Concrete, Washington, if you've ever heard stories about the Skagit River and something that lives in it, if you've had dreams about drowning in darkness and something huge waiting for you, don't come here. Break the cycle. Change your name. Forget where your family came from. Don't let the river call you back. Because once you're here, once you've answered the call, you can't leave. And eventually, when the thing wakes up hungry, you or your children or your grandchildren will have to feed it. The volunteers are walking to the river now. Rebecca hugged me goodbye. She wasn't crying. She looked almost peaceful, like she was finally going to where she belonged. "Take care of yourself, Lily," she said. "And don't come back here. When you grow up, move far away. Don't let your children know about Concrete. Break the cycle if you can." Then she walked into the water, along with the others. They walked until the water was over their heads, and then they kept going, walking down into the depths, until they disappeared. The water is receding now. The rain has stopped. The thing has been fed, and it's returning to its sleep at the bottom of the river. In a few days, the town will clean up the flood damage. Life will go back to normal. Everyone will try to forget what happened, what we sacrificed to survive. But I won't forget. I can't forget. And I know that 99 years from now, maybe my great-granddaughter will feel the call. She'll have the dreams. She'll be pulled back to this terrible town to feed the thing in the river. Unless I can break the cycle. Unless I can find a way to end this. I don't know how. But I'm going to try. Because Rebecca was my friend. And she died to save us. And I won't let that happen again. I won't let the thing in the river take anyone else I love. Even if it takes me 100 years to figure out how to stop it. The sound in the walls. My name is Jordan, and I'm 14 years old. I live in Spokane, Washington, in an old apartment building downtown called the Riverside. It was built in 1912, and it looks like it. Creaky floors, drafty windows, radiators that clang and hiss all night. My mom and I moved here 6 months ago after my parents got divorced, and we couldn't afford anything better. I didn't mind the old building at first. It had character, my mom said. High ceilings and big windows and these old-fashioned details like crown molding and hardwood floors. But there was one thing that bothered me from the very first night. The sound in the walls. It started small. Just a scratching noise, like a mouse or a rat. I told my mom about it, and she called the landlord. He sent an exterminator who checked all the walls and said there were no signs of rodents. No droppings, no nests, nothing. He said old buildings just make noises as they settle, and we'd get used to it. But the scratching didn't stop. It got louder. And it moved. At first, it was just in my bedroom wall, behind my bed. Then it started appearing in other walls, the kitchen, the living room, the bathroom. And it wasn't random. The scratching would follow me. If I moved from my bedroom to the kitchen, within a few minutes, I'd hear it start up in the kitchen wall. If I went to the bathroom, it would begin scratching there. Like something was tracking me through the walls. It's just pipes, my mom said when I told her. Or maybe the heating system. Old buildings are full of weird sounds. But I knew the difference between pipes and something alive. This sound was deliberate, purposeful. It was something moving, crawling through the spaces between the walls. And then it started making other sounds. Not just scratching. Tapping. Like someone knocking with one finger, testing the wall, looking for weak spots. And sometimes, late at night, I'd hear a sound that made my blood freeze, breathing. Heavy, raspy breathing, coming from inside the wall next to my bed. I stopped sleeping in my room. I started sleeping on the couch in the living room, but the sound followed me there too. Scratching, tapping, breathing, always just on the other side of the wall from wherever I was. My mom thought I was going crazy. She couldn't hear it, she said. Or maybe she could but was pretending not to, because acknowledging it would mean admitting something was really wrong, and we couldn't afford to move again. Then things got worse. I started finding marks on the walls. Not scratches on the surface, these were bulges, like something was pushing against the drywall from the inside. Long, thin bulges that looked like fingers pressing outward, trying to break through. I took pictures and showed my mom. She finally believed me enough to call the landlord again. He sent a maintenance guy who cut a hole in the wall where the bulges were worst. There was nothing inside. Just empty space, some old wires, and insulation. No explanation for the bulges, no sign of anything that could be making them. But when the maintenance guy left and my mom went to work, I heard something else. A voice. Quiet, muffled, coming from deep inside the walls. It sounded like someone whispering, but I couldn't make out the words. Just a constant whisper, going on, sometimes in one spot, sometimes moving through the walls like the scratching had. I tried to ignore it. I wore headphones constantly, blasting music to drown out the sounds. But even with music playing loud, I could still feel it. A vibration in the walls, like something large was moving through them, circling the apartment, getting closer. One night, I woke up at 3 a.m. to find the whispering had gotten louder. Loud enough that I could almost understand it. I took off my headphones and listened, my heart pounding. The voice was coming from the wall behind my couch. It was saying the same thing over and over, "Let me out. Let me out. Let me out." I turned on all the lights and sat in the middle of the room, as far from the walls as I could get. The whispering continued, moving around the apartment, always the same words. "Let me out. Let me out. Let me out. Who are you?" I finally yelled. "What do you want?" The whispering stopped. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then, from right behind me, so close it sounded like someone was pressed against the wall just inches from my head, a voice spoke clearly. "I used to live here. I used to be like you. But I went into the walls, and now I can't get out. And I'm so hungry, Jordan. So hungry." It knew my name. This thing in the walls knew who I was. I ran out of the apartment and spent the rest of the night in the building's lobby. When my mom came home in the morning and found me there, she was furious. She thought I was being dramatic, making up stories for attention because of the divorce. "There's nothing in the walls, Jordan. You need to stop this." But when we went back to the apartment, she froze. The walls were covered in bulges now. Dozens of them, all over every wall, like something was pressing against them from the inside. And in the middle of the living room wall, spelled out in raised letters like someone had written it from inside the wall, were words, "Help me, my mom called the police." They came and looked around, but they couldn't explain it. They said maybe it was water damage causing the drywall to warp, or maybe someone was playing a prank, but they didn't sound convinced. One of the officers, an older guy, pulled my mom aside and said something that I couldn't quite hear, but I saw my mom's face go pale. After the police left, my mom sat me down. Officer Davis said there have been complaints from this building before. People hearing sounds in the walls. People seeing bulges and marks. 3 families moved out in the last 2 years because of it. Did he say what's causing it? My mom hesitated. He said a kid went missing from this building in 1985. A 12-year-old boy named Timothy Warren. He disappeared from apartment 4B, our apartment, and they never found him. The police searched everywhere, but it was like he'd vanished into thin air. You think he's in the walls? I asked, horrified. I don't know what to think. But tomorrow, we're getting out of here. I don't care if we have to break the lease. We're leaving. But that night, everything changed. I woke up around 2 a.m. to the sound of my bedroom door opening. I'd locked it before going to sleep, but it swung open anyway. And standing in the doorway was something that looked like a person but wrong. It was thin, impossibly thin, like someone had been stretched out and flattened. Its skin was gray, covered in dust and cobwebs. Its clothes were old and torn, a t-shirt and jeans from decades ago. And its face was sunken and hollow, with eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. Jordan, it whispered in that same voice from the walls. I need you to help me. I've been stuck in the walls for so long. I can't get out by myself. But if you come with me, if you help me find the way, we can both escape. Stay away from me, I said, pulling my blanket up like it could protect me. The thing moved closer, and I saw how it moved, not walking, but sliding, like it was moving along tracks, like it had forgotten how to use its legs properly. I used to be Timothy, it said. I lived in this apartment with my parents. One day, I heard something in the walls. Scratching and tapping and whispering. Just like you did. I thought maybe there was a secret passage, a hidden room. So I found a loose panel in my closet, and I crawled inside to explore. It reached the foot of my bed, and I could smell it now, dust and decay and something worse, something that had been trapped in darkness for decades. But I got lost in there, Timothy continued. The walls go on forever, Jordan. They connect to other walls, other buildings, spreading under the whole city like a maze. I couldn't find my way back. I called for help, but nobody could hear me. Or they heard me but couldn't find me. I've been crawling through the walls ever since, trying to find a way out. And I'm so hungry. So tired. So ready to stop. I'm sorry that happened to you, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. But I can't help you. I don't know how. Timothy's face twisted into something that might have been a smile. Yes, you do. You just have to come into the walls with me. 2 of us can find the way out. 2 of us can escape. Just come with me, Jordan. Just for a little while. I promise I'll help you get home after. He reached out with one hand, and I saw his fingers were wrong too long, too thin, with too many joints, like they'd been broken and healed wrong over and over. No, I said. I'm not going into the walls. Timothy's smile faded. His eyes got darker, angrier. Then I'll just have to take you. He lunged forward, grabbing my ankle with those horrible fingers. His grip was cold and strong, and he started pulling me toward the closet, toward the loose panel he'd used to enter the walls all those years ago. I screamed and kicked, and my mom burst into the room. She turned on the light, and Timothy recoiled, hissing like the light burned him. He let go of my ankle and slithered backward into the shadows. It's the boy, I told my mom, crying now. Timothy Warren. He's still here. He's been living in the walls this whole time, and now he wants to take me with him. My mom grabbed me and pulled me out of the room. We ran out of the apartment and down to our car, and we drove to a hotel. We didn't go back to get our stuff. We just left everything and ran. The next day, my mom called the landlord and told him we were breaking the lease and never coming back. She didn't care about losing our deposit or facing legal action. We were done with the riverside. But here's the thing that terrifies me. Even though we left that building, even though we're living in a new apartment now on the other side of town, I still hear it sometimes. Late at night, when the building is quiet, I hear scratching in the walls. Faint, distant, but definitely there. And 3 nights ago, I heard the whispering again. Jordan, where did you go? I'm still looking for you. I'm still in the walls. And the walls connect everything. Every building, every house, every structure in the city. I can reach anywhere through the walls. And I will find you. You promised to help me, remember? You have to help me get out. I never promised anything. But Timothy doesn't seem to remember things clearly anymore. He's been in the walls too long. He's become part of them somehow, part of the hidden spaces between floors and ceilings and rooms. Last night, I found a loose panel in my new bedroom closet. I didn't remember seeing it before. It's small, just big enough for someone thin to crawl through. And when I pressed my ear against it, I heard something moving in there. Scratching. Tapping. Breathing. In that whisper, I found you, Jordan. I'm here. Now you have to help me. You have to come into the walls. I told my mom, and we're moving again tomorrow. But I don't think it matters. I think Timothy can follow me anywhere now. He's learned how to move through the walls, through the hidden spaces and buildings, and he won't stop looking for me until I help him escape. Or until I become like him, stuck in the walls forever, crawling through the darkness, getting thinner and stranger and more desperate, calling out to the next kid who moves into apartment 4B at the riverside. I'm writing this as a warning. If you live in Spokane, Washington, especially downtown in an old building, be careful. If you hear scratching in your walls, don't investigate. Don't look for loose panels or secret passages. Don't go into the walls. Because something is living in there. Maybe it's just Timothy Warren, trapped since 1985. Or maybe there are others, other people who got lost in the walls and couldn't find their way back. Other people who are still crawling through the hidden spaces, still looking for a way out, still calling for help. And if they find you, if they learn your name, they won't leave you alone. They'll follow you from building to building, always in the walls, always scratching and tapping and whispering, always trying to convince you to help them escape. Don't listen to them. Don't help them. Because I don't think they want to escape anymore. I think they're so far gone, so changed by being in the walls for so long, that they just want company. They want someone else to join them in the darkness, crawling forever through the spaces between rooms, never finding a way out. I can hear him now. Timothy. Scratching on my bedroom wall. Whispering my name. Promising that if I just come into the walls with him, just for a little while, he'll show me something amazing. He'll show me where all the hidden passages lead. He'll show me the secret rooms that no one else knows about. But I know what will really happen. I'll get lost, just like he did. And I'll become thin and gray and hollow, and I'll forget who I was. And I'll spend decades crawling through the walls, calling out to the next kid, begging them to help me escape. I'm not going into the walls. I won't let Timothy trick me. But I'm so tired. And the scratching never stops. And sometimes, late at night, I wonder if it would be easier to just open the panel in the closet and crawl inside. Maybe Timothy is right. Maybe 2 of us really could find the way out together. Maybe, no. No, I can't think that way. That's how he gets you. That's how he tricks you into joining him. I have to stay strong. I have to remember that Timothy Warren has been lost for almost 40 years, and he's not human anymore. He's something else now. Something that belongs in the walls. And I'm not going to become like him. I'm not going to let the walls take me. Even if the scratching never stops. Even if I hear his voice every night for the rest of my life. I'm staying out of the walls. Please, if you're reading this, stay out of the walls too. The last campsite at Deception Pass. My name is Amy, and I'm 15 years old. I live on Whidbey Island in Washington State. It's a beautiful place, with rocky beaches and forests and amazing views of Puget Sound. There's a state park here called Deception Pass that's really popular with tourists and locals. People come from all over to camp, hike, and see the famous bridge. But there's one campsite that nobody uses anymore. Campsite 23, way at the back of the campground, surrounded by thick forest. There's no official reason why it's closed. The park rangers will tell you it's for environmental restoration or maintenance, but that's a lie. I know because I found out what really happened there. And I wish I hadn't. It started 2 months ago when my friend group decided to go camping at Deception Pass for spring break. There were 6 of us, me, my best friend Kayla, and 4 other kids from school, Marcus, Tyler, Jenna, and Chris. We'd all known each other since elementary school, and we wanted to do something fun before everyone went off to different colleges after graduation. We reserved 3 campsites next to each other and drove up on a Friday afternoon. The weather was perfect, sunny and warm, not too windy. We set up our tents, got a fire going, and cooked hot dogs for dinner. Everything was normal and fun. Around 9 p.m., after it got dark, Tyler suggested we explore the campground. He'd brought a flask of vodka he'd stolen from his dad, and he wanted to find a place away from the adults to drink it. We walked deeper into the campground, past the bathrooms and the other campsites, until we reached a small dirt road with a chain across it and a sign that said closed, no entry. "What's back there?" Marcus asked. "Probably just more campsites," Tyler said. "Come on, let's check it out." We ducked under the chain and followed the road. It curved through the forest for maybe a quarter mile, getting darker and darker as we walked away from the main campground. Finally, we reached a small clearing with a single campsite. There was a picnic table, a fire pit, and a flat area for a tent. And there was a number carved into a tree, 23. "This is weird," Kayla said. "Why would they close off just one campsite?" "Who cares?" Tyler said, sitting at the picnic table and pulling out his flask. "We can party here without anyone bothering us." We sat around the table, passing the flask and talking. But I felt uncomfortable. Something about the campsite felt wrong. It was too quiet. We were only a quarter mile from the main campground, but I couldn't hear anything from there, no voices, no music, no crackling campfires. Just silence and darkness pressing in from the forest around us. "Does anyone else feel weird?" I asked. "It's just dark," Jenna said. "And maybe a little creepy being out here alone. But we're fine." Then Marcus pointed at the picnic table. "Look at this." Carved into the wood were names and dates. Lots of them. Too many to count. They went back decades. I saw dates from the 1970s, 80s, 90s, all the way up to 2019. "People have been coming here forever," Marcus said. "It's like a tradition or something." But Chris was reading the names more carefully. "Wait. These names. I recognize some of them. Sarah Mitchell, 1998. She was a girl from the island who went missing when my parents were in high school. And look, Jason Torres, 2007. I remember hearing about him on the news. He disappeared during a camping trip." We all looked at the names more closely. Chris was right. Several of them were people who'd gone missing from Whidbey Island over the years. Their names, their dates, all carved into this picnic table at campsite 23. "This is really creepy," Kayla said. "We should go back." "Maybe someone carved their names as like a memorial," Tyler suggested. "You know, to remember people who went missing." But that didn't make sense. Why would a memorial be at a closed campsite in the middle of the woods? Then we heard it. Singing. A woman's voice, coming from somewhere in the forest around us. She was singing an old song, something I didn't recognize, in a high, sweet voice. The singing circled the campsite, moving through the trees, getting closer. "Hello?" Marcus called out. "Is someone there?" The singing stopped. For a moment, there was just silence. Then a voice spoke from the darkness, right at the edge of the firelight. "You found my campsite. You found where I wait. Are you here to stay? Are you here to join the others?" We all jumped up, looking around, but we couldn't see anyone. Just darkness and trees and shadows. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I've been here a long time," the voice said. "Since before the park was made. Since before the roads and the campsites and the bridge. This place is mine. This forest is mine. And everyone who comes to Campsite 23. They belong to me now." A figure stepped out of the shadows into the clearing. It looked like a woman, sort of, but wrong. She was too tall and too thin, and she moved in this jerky, unnatural way. Her face was pale and beautiful, but her eyes were completely black, like deep pools of water. She wore a long dress that looked ancient, and her hair flowed around her like it was underwater, even though there was no wind. "Run!" Tyler yelled. We ran. We crashed through the forest, trying to get back to the dirt road, back to the main campground. Behind us, we heard the woman laughing. Not a cruel laugh, but a sad one, like she was disappointed we were leaving. We made it back to our campsites and told the camp host what happened. He was an older guy, probably in his 60s, and when we mentioned Campsite 23, his face went white. "You kids went there? At night?" "Yeah, there was this woman." "No," he interrupted. "There's no woman. There's never anyone there. That's why it's closed. People who camp at Site 23 don't come back. Or they come back wrong." He told us the history. Campsite 23 was closed in 2019 after 3 teenagers disappeared from there over a single summer. But people had been vanishing from that site since the 1970s. The Park Service tried to close it permanently, but somehow, people kept finding their way there. Kept camping there despite the chain and the sign. And kept disappearing. "What is she?" I asked. "The woman we saw?" The camp host shook his head. "I don't know. Some people say she's a spirit from before white settlers came here. Others say she's something older than that, something that was here before anyone. All I know is, if she calls to you, if you hear her singing, you need to leave the park immediately. Because if you go back to Campsite 23, you won't leave again." We packed up our stuff that night and went home. I thought that would be the end of it. But it wasn't. 3 days later, Tyler disappeared. His parents said he'd gone for a walk after dinner and never came home. The police searched everywhere, but they couldn't find any trace of him. It was like he'd vanished into thin air. 2 weeks after that, Jenna went missing. She told her parents she was going for a bike ride on the trails near Deception Pass. Her bike was found abandoned on the side of the road, but Jenna was gone. And last week, Marcus disappeared. He'd been camping with his family at Deception Pass, not at Campsite 23, but at a different site in the main campground. In the middle of the night, he got up to use the bathroom and never came back. The park rangers found his footprints leading into the forest, toward the closed-off section where Campsite 23 was located. The prints stopped at the chain, and there was no sign of him beyond that. 3 of my friends, gone. All of them connected to that night at Campsite 23. All of them heard the woman singing, saw her step out of the shadows. And now I hear it too. The singing. Late at night, when I'm trying to sleep, I hear her voice calling to me through my window. That same old song, sad and beautiful, pulling at something deep inside me. "Amy," she sings. "Amy, come back to my campsite. Come back to the forest. Your friends are here. They're waiting for you. Don't you want to see them again?" I've been having dreams about Campsite 23. In the dreams, I walk there in the darkness, and when I arrive, my friends are there. Tyler and Jenna and Marcus, sitting at the picnic table like they never left. They smile at me and wave me over, telling me to join them. But their eyes are black, just like the woman's. And their skin is too pale. And they move wrong, jerky and strange, like puppets. Stay with us, they say in the dreams. Stay at campsite 23 forever. It's peaceful here. It's quiet. We don't hurt anymore. We don't worry anymore. We just exist in the forest, in the darkness, with her. I wake up terrified, but the singing continues. Always that sad, sweet song, always calling my name, always promising me peace if I just come back to campsite 23. Kayla and Chris are terrified too. They're having the same dreams, hearing the same singing. We've tried to stay together, thinking that maybe if we're never alone, we can resist whatever is calling us. But it's getting harder. Last night, I found myself walking toward my car at 2 a.m., my keys in my hand, ready to drive to Deception Pass. I didn't remember deciding to go. I just found myself halfway there, like I'd been sleepwalking. Kayla called my phone and woke me up from whatever trance I was in, and I turned around and went home. But I know I'm going to go back eventually. We all are. The woman at campsite 23 won't stop calling until we return. Until we join our friends at her picnic table, where all those names are carved, where all those missing people have gone. I'm writing this as a warning. If you live in Washington State, if you ever visit Deception Pass State Park, do not go looking for campsite 23. Don't follow the closed road. Don't duck under the chain. Don't listen if you hear singing in the forest. Because something lives there, something old and hungry and patient. It collects people, keeps them somehow, adds their names to its table. And once you've seen it, once you've heard its voice, it won't let you go. It will call to you every night until you return to its campsite, until you sit at its table and become part of whatever horrible collection it's been building for decades. Kayla just texted me. She's at Deception Pass right now. She says she couldn't help it, she got in her car and drove there, and now she's standing at the chain, looking down the dirt road toward campsite 23. She says she can hear the singing, and it's so beautiful, and she wants to follow it. I begged her not to go. I begged her to get back in her car and come home. But she's not responding anymore. And I can hear the singing too, coming through my window, calling my name, promising me that my friends are waiting, that it's time to join them at campsite 23. My keys are in my hand. I don't remember picking them up. I'm walking toward my car. I can't stop myself. The singing is so beautiful. So sad. So compelling. I'm driving to Deception Pass now. I know I shouldn't. I know this is the end. But I have to go. I have to see my friends again. I have to answer the call. If you're reading this, please tell my parents I love them. Tell them I'm sorry. Tell them I couldn't help it. And tell everyone, stay away from campsite 23. Stay away from the woman who sings in the forest. Stay away from Deception Pass after dark. Because once you hear her singing, once she knows your name, you can never truly leave. You'll always be drawn back to campsite 23, where all the missing people go, where the names are carved into the table, where the woman waits in the shadows with her black eyes and her sad, beautiful song. I'm almost there now. I can see the bridge, I can see the sign for the campground. The singing is so loud. My friends are waiting. I'm going home.
I know people will say it's Photoshop or a hoax, or that I'm mentally ill. Maybe I am. Maybe I had some kind of break with reality that day on the trail, and I'm still there, really, lost in the woods, hallucinating all of this. But it feels real. The photo feels real. The memory of that breathing on my neck feels real. I'm writing this as a warning, I guess, or maybe just as a confession. If you hike in the Pacific Northwest, particularly around the Rattlesnake Ledge area, and you see someone on the trail who doesn't seem quite right, someone who moves too smoothly, whose arms hang too straight, who stays always ahead of you or always behind you but never gets closer, don't try to catch up with them. Don't call out to them. Don't take their picture. Just turn around and leave the trail. It's not worth finding out what they want or what they are or why they're there. Trust me on this, because I think I'm starting to understand. I think I'm starting to see the pattern. Every few days, I notice the figure in the photo has moved again, gotten closer. At the rate he's progressing, I'd estimate he'll reach the edge of the frame in about 2 weeks. And I don't know what happens after that. I don't know what happens when he runs out of photograph to move through. But I'm terrified I'm going to find out. Last night, I heard footsteps in my apartment. Slow, deliberate footsteps in my living room at 3 a.m., even though I live alone, even though all my doors were locked. I lay in bed, frozen, listening to those footsteps pace back and forth, never coming closer to my bedroom door but never leaving either. And underneath my door, I saw a shadow, the shadow of 2 feet, standing still, waiting. I didn't get up. I didn't look. I just pulled my blanket over my head like a child hiding from monsters and waited for morning. When I finally got up the courage to check, just after dawn, there was nothing there. But on my phone, there was a new photo I didn't take. It was a picture of my bedroom door, taken from inside my living room, time-stamped 3:47 a.m. And in the very corner of the frame, just barely visible, was the edge of that blurred figure, those reaching arms, entering the photo from outside the frame. He's not in the woods anymore.
I know people will say it's Photoshop, or a hoax, or that I'm mentally ill. Maybe I am. Maybe I had some kind of break with reality that day on the trail, and I'm still there, really, lost in the woods, hallucinating all of this. But it feels real. The photo feels real. The memory of that breathing on my neck feels real. I'm writing this as a warning, I guess, or maybe just as a confession. If you hike in the Pacific Northwest, particularly around the Rattlesnake Ledge area, and you see someone on the trail who doesn't seem quite right, someone who moves too smoothly, whose arms hang too straight, who stays always ahead of you or always behind you but never gets closer, don't try to catch up with them. Don't call out to them. Don't take their picture. Just turn around and leave the trail. It's not worth finding out what they want, or what they are, or why they're there. Trust me on this. Because I think I'm starting to understand. I think I'm starting to see the pattern. Every few days, I notice the figure in the photo has moved again, gotten closer. At the rate he's progressing, I'd estimate he'll reach the edge of the frame in about 2 weeks. And I don't know what happens after that. I don't know what happens when he runs out of photograph to move through. But I'm terrified I'm going to find out. Last night, I heard footsteps in my apartment. Slow, deliberate footsteps in my living room at 3 a.m., even though I live alone, even though all my doors were locked. I lay in bed, frozen, listening to those footsteps pace back and forth, never coming closer to my bedroom door but never leaving either. And underneath my door, I saw a shadow. The shadow of 2 feet, standing still, waiting. I didn't get up. I didn't look. I just pulled my blanket over my head like a child hiding from monsters and waited for morning. When I finally got up the courage to check, just after dawn, there was nothing there. But on my phone, there was a new photo I didn't take. It was a picture of my bedroom door, taken from inside my living room, time-stamped 3:47 a.m., and in the very corner of the frame, just barely visible, was the edge of that blurred figure, those reaching arms, entering the photo from outside the frame. He's not in the woods anymore.